Good morning. Morning, Rachel. Sorry, it's an upheaval of a morning. Anyway, hi.
Good morning.
Running in. It's been a bit of a, I know it's not that bad. 9:03. Phew. I was like, no. Time was flying this morning and I couldn't make it work. All right, here we go. Morning. In the chat. And if everyone can go and do that, let's see who's here. Hi, Nick. Hi, Moni. Hi, Peggy. Hi, Odessa. And I already said hi to Rachel. Nice to see you guys. This is our last day. I can't believe, sorry, no, but sometimes my brain is like, okay, it's time for the holidays, but I cannot believe it's time for the holidays. I really can't. Um, so yeah, shocked, absolutely. Shocked at what's the ongoing timing. But anyway, that said, you guys have been busy and um let me put over here the earth, the illustration, no, the illustrations of the Padlet. Oh, hold on, I need to get this computer up online. I just want to give you guys the link so that we can all go to the Padlet for a second. And if anyone hasn't posted what they did yet, please do so. You got my message back, Nick, that it's okay to,
Yes, I was going to do it all at once. So,
okay, yeah, that's good. I'd rather see it all in the same spot because that's when I go in, I search by people and I can find it otherwise. Yeah. Oh, shoot. Okay, my other computer had a restart. This was just so much going on. Anyway, but looks like it's online now. So I can make it work. So one thing that we haven't done is talked about coloring, and some of the people who aren't completely new to the class aren't here yet. There, I finally got to connect with the other computer. All right, let me in. And here we go. All right, sorry, but the other one had to restart. I don't know why. Overnight it restarted and it was giving me all kind of weird messages. So I do know that I don't think there's been any power outages. Anyway. All right. All connected on both sides. The reason I need the other side is because that's where I control the chats and the how do you call it, the feedback when you guys say yes or no, and I have to turn it on and off. I have to control it from the other computer, so that's why I had to have the second one on and this one off. All right, because this one that I'm teaching from is a laptop and it's just not big enough to hold everything. All right, so I see that you guys were working on some of the wording, and I know that Rachel, I saw you put a lot there. Flowers, so cute, full of flowers. I saw that someone had put, where is it? I saw Moni that you reused a homework. Oh, coffee beans. There you go. Okay. So I had seen these that came up like early last week, and then quite a few of you guys have been working hard on recreating this one that I wanted to ask you. you said that you miscalculated your building sizes. But in Illustrator, that shouldn't be an issue because as long as this building is grouped, you can just grab it and reduce it. Wait, Vera? I guess you're not here yet, Vera. Okay. Vera's always here. I hope nothing's wrong. I'm always like confused. There's people who come and go, but people who are never not here. And then I'm like, okay, not good. We're having bad news lately. So, okay. So then, and plus she's been emailing me. So, okay. And then Odessa recreating the stuff. But Vera had some questions that I wanted to answer about the zigzag and stuff. But if she's not here, I'm going to skip on that. Did anyone else have any questions? I think the rest was just doing the work, right? And completing it and things like that.
I had a
One,
question on the guitar template that you gave us.
okay, can I stop you for a minute though first? Because
Yes.
one thing that I'm questioning here, only questioning, not questioning sounds like it's asking you. Since this says group and I'm seeing a lot of little lines there, is this a group of like the books and then you have other groups of different parts?
No, I grouped the whole building
Okay.
and the shadow.
Which means that if you want to like grab the door right now, you would have to grab one panel, two panel, and the pink thing and then move it.
Oh,
So I just wanted to remind you guys that the best way to work with these things is to do subgroups. So if this is one big group, that's great if you have many other houses. I get that. But what if you look at this and you go, oh, there's not enough space between here and here. I want to move it left, or I want to make it longer, or I want to make it pink, or whatever. Now you'd have to go and sub-select each one of these things versus if you were right now, I'd go to click, shift, click, make a little group of that and call it door, right? And then frame plus base plus blue and call it window. Then all the books can be in one with the
okay.
shelves.
That
Does that
makes
make sense?
sense.
And then
Yes.
like sign, like line and books and two dots, that's the sign. And maybe you need to move the sign up or down. Got it?
So
So
I'd
like
make little
mhm,
groups and then make all those groups into
into
one.
one. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And I
I'll
didn't
play
know
with
if
another
I didn't
one.
know if these were all the books and thus I didn't see the rest or not
Oh,
because this
good.
does look to like it's the books in a way because I'm seeing yellow. Um, but that's why it could have been that they were down there, but if not, then the question was there. Just
Okay.
remember to make subgroups to make working with it later easier, right? That's all. So say what if you want to move the window and the door to the left
Mhm.
or to the right or up, then you can individually grab all those bits and pieces, okay? And of
Yes.
course, within the picture where you have 10 little stores, you also have the group of the whole store, right? So that you can move the whole store around. Okay?
Okay.
I just wanted to
Yes.
make that point. But you said you had another question, which was,
The guitar, I couldn't figure out how to use the guitar template.
oh, okay. Um, well, Claudia isn't here and she was working with this one. So did anyone else? I think last week someone had done the guitar. I think it was Vera again. No. Someone did the guitar the other day. Here, Peggy. Okay. So, but I think Peggy, you said that something had been a little bit harder. Do I have the template for the guitar right here to open it up to show you how to use it? Let me see if I have the guitar template.
I thought it was up
I
in our
think I
homework, was it not?
do. Yeah, here it is, I believe. Yeah. So let me share my screen. Okay, so here's the guitar template. And for better for worse, this was meant to be a little bit of a guide, right? So, and then you would go over here. So notice that when you go to the layers, do I have? Looks like I shifted this to a different workspace. Yeah, let me go back to essentials. Okay, so when I go back to layers, I had locked this one, which is all of the stuff I gave you, so that when you try to do anything, automatically it'll happen in here, which is an empty layer, right? So then if you grab the curvature tool, this was about practicing the curvature tool, and if you try to do this one, and you click here and you click here and you click here and you click here, it won't work because you'll get a circle, right? So then that might mean you reminding you that to do this one, you have to do the double click, double click, double click. Wait, hold on. I forgot to take the fill away so that we can see what I'm doing. So I'm gonna first make a no fill. There we go. And ideally, it's easier to start with a stroke, which I have one. But if you don't have a stroke, put a stroke. Okay, and now so double click, double click, double click, double click, double click. Oh, the last double click always when you join has to be single. And then when you look away at it, you go, oh, okay, so that's how you make a square. And then you go, but I didn't click in the exact same spot. I have another one where the click spots are precisely tiny, but then people couldn't see them. So anyway, this gives you an idea, but then you know that you need to go in there and grab this and remodify it. Okay, so then that would make you see that one. Okay. And then this one, actually, if you just click, 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 like it's like a follow the dots thing. And just by doing that, when you're done, you end up with the guitar shape, right? Which,
Yeah, I didn't unlock it. When I clicked, nothing would happen and I forgot to go unlock it.
no, you're not supposed to unlock anything.
Oh, well, that's weird. Nothing would happen when I clicked on the little dots. I don't know what I was doing wrong.
Well, maybe you had selected the draw layer, in which case nothing would happen. It would do
That
this
could
little
be.
no. You were like, I guess I could call it template layer or something. It's your work is a layer you're supposed to be on, right? And then
Mhm.
it starts working. And then the idea wasn't that you from here, you transfer that. It was more giving you an idea of how
Practicing,
far
yeah.
things have to be so that then you could go here and try it yourself.
Mhm.
But yeah, some people might transfer this from here to there and consider it done. But my idea was to give you an idea of what the clicks would have to be to make that kind of shape, right?
I'll try it again.
Yeah, so you probably had selected the draw layer,
Mhm.
in which case, yeah, the tools don't work because it's locked. So, yeah, did I not say practice the curvature tool, clicking on the circles, go to the guitar and write the same tools. Look at that. So I probably should say, I should probably correct this to say to do this. I mean, let me unlock it as a template as far as that's concerned. I'm going to unlock it and hold on, let me select the pieces that I did. And let me not call it draw layer. Do not use or something like that. What should it was it? Do not use this or something like that. Not that everyone reads. See, now it's too small.
Or just, is that a masking? Isn't that a masking layer? Or no?
No, it's just a layer.
What's the second layer called?
Keep away. This one was called your work, and this one was do not use. God, I don't know what else to call it. Don't not here. I don't know what to call it. Don't use. Don't use. That's don't use. Maybe that works a bit better. I don't know. And then have it locked.
Well, now I understand. So yeah, I'll go in and recreate
So
that.
next
Thank you.
time
I
I put it
appreciate
up,
it.
it'll say that. Oh, I didn't think I didn't put an apostrophe there. I did something else. There we go. Don't use. Anyway. Yeah, so there we go. There, that's how the idea was to use it. But I should write it over here and be a little bit more specific. But if you hadn't pointed that out, I wouldn't have known. So actually, let me unlock this again. Do not use the locked layer. Start drawing on your work layer. I don't know. Does that make sense now?
That's perfect. Yeah. It just made, because forgetting and doing all the other stuff, I didn't really look at the layers. So I was on the initial layer. That's why
All
nothing
right,
worked.
so now we made it better for the next people who get this assignment. Cool. All right. Perfect. Let me see. I think that's it for new stuff, right? Yeah, the rest was what we did in class. Okay. So, oh, this wasn't here a second ago, was it? She's not in class. Did she just post it? Am I wrong? Okay. Nothing else here. So let's continue with Illustrator. Any other questions you guys have about the text, work, the layers, the masking, anything in particular that you want to know before we continue? Nope. All right. I have question. I was kind of looking to see who's here, but Odessa, this is your
Yes.
second time around with Illustrator, right?
It is.
And because I know you were in the rest of them, but I didn't, and I know it's the second time around for quite a few of you guys. Nick, is this your second time around the Illustrator?
No,
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 you've done
it's
the
not.
digital, yeah. And oh, Claudia just came in. See, I knew I just seen her post. Probably posted before joining. Okay. Hi, Claudia. I was just noticing your post and going, wait, but I just didn't see that post and now it's here. So, oh, great. And I said all of that to the air because her sound wasn't connected. Hi, Claudia. I was talking to you and then I noticed your sound wasn't connected. So,
Hi, good morning, everyone.
all right. Good morning. So anyway, all right, that's what I needed to know. So I have a couple of you guys who have never taken this class before today. And I wanted to know based on that, how deep or not to go, or at what point, where to start with the colors conversation. Whether to start like the beginning or middle or higher level conversation. But you guys are a fast group, so I'm gonna be able to do all of that. First of all, this is the last class. Just as a reminder, in case you're, sometimes what happens is that, well, it won't be a problem this time because next Friday, no one would think of coming because of Thanksgiving. But a lot of people forget it's the first class and the next week they're sitting there going, hello, you didn't open the class or something. Is something wrong? I get emails. I was like, no, it's the last class. So I just want to remind you of that. And that by next week, hopefully you're all overstuffed with things, turkey or with my vegetarian family, not me, but everyone else is vegetarian. I won't be getting turkey. It'll be something else. But uh what do I have it here? No, I don't have my classes. I'll pull up my classes. I am doing bunch of classes next session that are the okay. Up until a week ago, I was scheduled to do a bunch of classes next session that are about the web classes, web design, web this, web that. Hopefully, I'll still be able to teach them, but there's a chance. I don't know if some of you guys were Norma Egley's students. Some of you guys have. Does anyone or has anyone known of Norma Egley? Peggy, did you read the email? Okay, let me stop this for a second. So I'm for those of you who did know her, she passed away. I know, Peggy, I'm sorry. It's really shocking. There is an email that went out to students, but not everyone reads their emails because, she was teaching last week and now she's not. And yeah, she had heart surgery and it didn't work out. So I want to not gloss over this, but I did want to let people know. And so it might be that maybe in the spring I'll be doing some of her class. Who knows what's happening? But for the most part, my point was, okay, I'm gonna just change gears. If you want to, I can send you information and obituary and things like that. Just reach out to me later. But as far as classes next session, there's a lot of, Illustrator and design, Photoshop, that kind of stuff. And for those of you who've taken this for the first time, know that when people take it again, it's not because they didn't learn enough. It's just that whenever you practice, there's a level of how much you practice. And then when you take it again, you deepen that knowledge, right? And you start doing more interesting things and can you go ahead, even if technically I might be teaching similar tools. I don't always. I tend to go down on tangents and get to teach some cool extra stuff each time. But and it depends a bit on who's in the class, right? Because if I see that I have a lot of people who are new, I might need to stick a bit more to the basics. But even then, you can develop your work and then apply them in all these extra classes that I'm teaching, all the web classes and whatnot. And the one thing I wanted to say to anyone who's worried to sign up for them is that the web classes all say that they are in person, which technically they are. But I allow people who are online and I do it hybrid mode. I go in there and I put on the Zoom and I teach from there instead of from here. And so if you guys want to do that, don't stop yourself. I'm any class that's mine that says in person, I will teach in a way that you can be at home. Okay, that's basically what I wanted to say. And it's not official, so don't go spreading it out because officially it shouldn't be happening. But that's the only way to get students in. I mean, it's ridiculous that the web classes of all things are not on the web, but it's got to do with paperwork that never got submitted to the state chancellor, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, so I'll be reaching out to those of you who I haven't, who I won't see anymore between here. I can't believe that I might not see some of you guys until next year. That's crazy, but yeah. So just that many times I go off, it's the last day, I keep helping some people and then I don't see you guys for quite a while. So I just wanted to give my little until next year little thing to all of you guys. It's been beautiful and a pleasure to have you. And I hope I see you again in some repetition of or not of any of these classes, or hopefully you're daring to take another one of my new ones that you haven't taken yet. In the web, those of you who've taken my Photoshop classes, next year I'm doing web Photoshop for web designers or something like that it's called. That one is it's pretty crucial in how I use Photoshop to do things that have to do with design versus just photography. So for people who are interested in design, who take Illustrator or digital sign techniques, although it's called Photoshop for web design, it is basically Photoshop for design. And I teach things that really are much more than just how to manipulate a photo to make it look good. Okay. So just wanted to say that it's not web design. It really should be Photoshop for design. We're trying to work on different names for classes and change things. And that would be one of the changes I'd make that for that one. Because whatever the tools I'll be using with Photoshop and that one apply to all of this kind of stuff. So anyway, that's all. I'll be emailing you at some point with the list of classes for next fall, next spring, but we need to see what happens. This is why I brought up with Norma's classes and things like that. Okay. So that said, let's go on to Illustrator. All right. So we're going to start with a new file. And same as usual, all the basics. Last time I used this was in a different class where I didn't have the same setup. So I'm going to have to recreate my inches and 4x4, 5x5. Because this only stays this way because it was the template that we've been using. So each time it would open separate the same way. But in the digital side techniques class, I opened it differently. So, all right. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab a rectangle tool, and we're going to make a box. And to make a perfect box, I can either look for these little lines to tell me, oh, boom, that means I've made a perfect box. Boom, see that pink little line, or I can just hold my shift key and it happens automatically. But the important thing is, and we've been through this before, but you can't let go of the shift key first. You first need to let go of your mouse, then you let go of the shift key, and then that stays, okay? Now what I want us to do is to, we're gonna leave a thin stroke on this one. In fact, the default stroke is 1 point, but there's actually some thinner ones that are what we call the hairline is already 1 point. But if you can go all the way down to 0.25 of a point, and then if you click away and look at it, it's just a really thin line. And when you really want a line that's barely there, that's better than 1 point. 1 point is already a stroke that really does make itself known, versus a hairline would be the 0.25, which is like as small as you can get it. Anyway, and let's go fill it with a color, any color of the set of colors that exist down here. And what I mean by these, this is the default set of swatches. These are called swatches, kind of like a paint swatch if you go to a paint store. And then it has the no fill, da 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 da, and then at the end of all these colors, it has a couple of gradients and some patterns. And then it has a little group of colors, which in this case is the grayscale, or a little group of the basic set of purple, basic set of colors that they call bright. I think this is called bright colors or something like that. So this is the default set. What we're going to do is go, okay, I want to move outside of this. We've spent this whole class just being inside of this set. Let's go ahead and choose one of these. I'm going to go with, I don't know, blue. And what would I have to do if I wanted to not have this blue? But what if I wanted to have a similar blue, but not that blue? I would go ahead and say, well, what if I want this, but I want it to be less saturated or a little bit more purple or something like that. So if I want to modify an existing color, okay, from the default set, I'm going to go into this little swatch and I'm going to double click on it. So I'm not creating something from scratch. I'm just modifying an existing swatch color, right? And we discover that this one is the pure CMYK cyan. It had a name. And let me cancel that for a second and show you when I hover over this and wait for a second, see how it says CMYK cyan and CMYK green. Once I'm done with those and I start hovering over the oranges and reds, I start having something else, which is numbers. So I'm going to switch. So I had you guys here. This is a given name by someone who wrote CMYK cyan. And if you look at CMYK, this is a pure cyan, just cyan and no other color. Now these are colors of, who knows what these colors are? Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. What kind of colors are these? When we created this file, let me cancel, when we said file, new, the default one that we've been using is print. Okay, I don't know if you remember, but that's the default one we've been using. So all of, when you choose to go to print, the setting that's this template is going to be set at is to give you CMYK color. Come now, one of you guys knows it. No one's speaking up? Or am I not hearing you guys say it?
RGB?
Actually, thanks for saying that, because no, one of the options is RGB. See, RGB, and one is CMYK. So CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, are ink colors, colors of ink. Has anyone had a printer, the kind that you refill the packs in, instead of one big pack, you have to put individual, the color it's missing is cyan, the color it's missing is yellow. Because it is the combination of inks of these 4 colors that give us every single thing that that you see around you that's printed. And I noticed yesterday when I had moved things around for my digital sign techniques class that I didn't have all the magazines and things that I usually have here. But anyway, even this box that's here has to be printed, and it's printed with inks, and the inks that it's printed with are CMY and K. It's basically cyan, magenta, yellow, and the K stands for black. Okay. So if instead I had said that I wanted to do something for the web, then there comes RGB. And RGB stands for red, green, and blue, because those are the colors of light that you need to mix in order to get all of these millions of colors. So on the screen, there's light projected, through the monitor that creates the color pink. But if you're going to print it, it's a combination of these 4 inks that creates that color pink, which is why you can rarely get the exact same tone that you see online to print, especially in the bright ends of the spectrum, because there's a lot easier to get a bright pink if you have light behind it than it is to get a bright pink if you have it on cloth or fabric, right? Or on paper or on cardboard or whatever you're printing on. So anyway, that's the big difference. So in this case, I'm going to go back to double clicking on this guy. So CMYK stands for ink, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which is what we use if we're going to print. You would never design something you can design it in CMYK and RGB, but when it goes through a printer, it'll be printed in CMYK because the printer, that's what it uses to print, right? So anyway, back to that. There's another number here that's appearing, which isn't really a number. So you might go, that's not a number, but it says like little hashtag OOAEEF, right? And what that means is that this is a different way of referring to the same color. In the internet, if you're designing for the internet or for any screen for a web page design, this is now for a web page design, then you have a language that represents this color, and that would be hexadecimal languages. I'm going to back out of this. We're just going to say okay to this. And let me just actually show you a different place where we do colors. So these are the set swatches, but there's another place where we can do colors. If we look here on the toolbar, you can see that the same color is represented in this little box. Let's double click on that box. And when you do that, you get this box, the color picker. So the color picker is basically a way to select colors in a much more visual form versus the numbers form. And if I move and click around right here, then the original color I started with goes to the bottom, and the color I'm clicking on right now shows up on top. So this is the cyan that I was clicking on, and now as I click around or just drag around, I'm getting tones of that color. It might not even look like it, but it is, because 100% cyan, when I start moving it around, begins to have other things appear. So over here's the CMYK. Okay, don't look at the rest for now. Here's the CMYK. And when we started over here, and I clicked on the bottom one again, as I move this around in order to add more darkness or more, more darkness or more lightness, we go up and down. I'm pretty distracted. I wish I had started with the news about Norma, so I apologize. Anyway, so up and down, I get darker or lighter tones of that cyan, and then left or right, I get more or less saturated. So to the left, I get lack of color, right? Or very, very pale of the same tone until it's really saturated. So if I go to the left and to the right, I don't end up with something really dark. I end up with more or less saturated colors. And then when I go to the top, that's the lightest it can be, and that's the darkest it can be. And so if you go to the very ends, it ends up being black, and the very ends over here, it ends up being white, right? So anyway, that's how you can create a new color of the tone that you opened up with. But what if I don't want the tone that I opened up with? What if I want different one? Then I go to this column right here and I go, I'm actually looking for a pink or a red or a green. And then you go, yeah, maybe a little bit greenish pink. How about that one there? And then you start and you start moving around and find what tone of that one you want. So here you choose the color that you're looking for, the hue, right? The hue or color. And then here you say how saturated, left or right, or how dark or light you want it up and down. When you're done and you choose a specific color, so I'm going to choose that kind of dark rose pink, which is something I'm pretty sure doesn't exist in the set palettes. If I now say, okay, I have painted that thing that used to be cyan a different color. But when I go over here to my swatches, it doesn't show up here. It just shows up in this box. And you might think that it's set in stone, but if you try to then draw something else in the future, you won't have this anymore. So in order to keep this color that you work so hard at making, you need to create it as a swatch. Okay, so once we've created a new color, we're going to go over here to this little plus sign and we're going to say new swatch. And the default name of it is going to be the CMYK notations, which is 30 cyan, 55 magenta, 19 yellow, and no black at all. So the mix of these amounts or percentages of color become this pink. So I might want to leave it like that at those numbers, or I might want to call this one, I don't know, dusty pink or whatever it is. And so up there, I get to choose what I want to call something. And then I'll say, okay. And down here, a new color appeared. A new swatch appeared. Now, it's a bit different than the rest of the swatches in that it has like this little white triangle there. I'm going to show you that in a minute, what that means. But for now, just that's the default one that appears. And if you know nothing about it, that's what it means. So now let's click away. And if I now make another box over here, it'll automatically come in that color because it's the last one that was chosen. But I could go and now choose one of the default sets of colors, right? I'm going to click away and we'll make a new one. If I now wanted to go back to that one, the only way to go back to that one is because I made it a swatch. Otherwise, I would have to go and start all over again. Does that make sense? So now the only way to keep on painting with the color you made is to make it be a swatch. Otherwise, you have to keep recreating it. So now we've been able to paint another thing with this color. Now let's go ahead and delete these two. So I'm going to select these two and stay back to this first one. How about I look at it and go, not totally happy with it. I want to just modify it just a teeny tad. So now I'm going to go back here to the swatch. And as we did it first with the cyan, I'm going to double click on this dusty pink or whatever color you made. And it pops up again. So now we can go, I don't want to recreate the whole thing. I just wanted to make it have a little bit more or less of something. Now this one's a bit harder to handle to do it from here, but you can say, I want a bit more cyan. See, this is cyan, more or less cyan. So over here, I would make it more cyan. Over here, I would make it less cyan. And do you see the changes in there? It's giving me an idea of what I'm looking for. Then I'll go, well, I like that, but I want it to be a bit more or less magenta. So less magenta, more magenta. And so then I get to make a new color. Or I wanted it to be maybe greenish with more yellow. No, less green, right? So you play around with the color and then you want that, but you want it dark and then you want it a bit more purple. And then you go, no, I want it a bit more pink. So by the time you're done, I'm gonna make it change enough to have it be a kind of a greenish tone. Here's the problem of having called that dusty pink. Is that dusty pink now? So if I say okay to this and I've modified it, if I hover over this thing, it says dusty pink. You see that? So you want to make sure that if you do change a color drastically, either change its name, or usually we don't call names things unless it's part of a logo or something like that. So what you might want to say is logo, right? Or you might want to say yeah, branding or something like that. You would explain what it'll be. So then you can go ahead and show this to your client, and then they go, yeah, you know, I'd rather this was a lighter green. And so you double click and the logo is going to be a lighter green. So you're going to lighten up the black to make it a bit lighter. And they liked the tone. So that's all you do. You add or take away a little black. And then what if the next time the client says, no, 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 I just want to switch completely. And so now it turns into an orange. Well, never mind. Now the logo is orange and that still matches. Does that make sense? So it's up to you what you call them, but just be careful of calling them something if you're not set yet on what that color is going to be. I'd rather call them by the name of what I'm going to be creating. All right. So one more thing about this box. So I opened it again. This one is showing me that there's a little box called global right there. It was on automatically. I'm now going to turn this off, just turn this global off. And now I'm going to say, okay. And what happened over here is I don't have that little white triangle that I had before. See that? If I click away, not click on another, click away, this became a box just like any other box. Versus if I turn it on and I say okay, and I click away, that little box has a little white triangle. You see that? So when you double click, if this is off, the selection that it has right now just means it's selected. If I clicked on this green or that green, that's just the white box that comes with having a color selected. But it doesn't have that white triangle versus if I double click and have it on, it has a triangle. Now that is a big difference in how that color is going to function, if it's global or not. All the colors that come with Illustrator are not global. As you can see, there's no triangles on them. You can turn them into global. I can open up this pink one and turn it into global if I wanted to, right? One of their colors. But for now, we're going to leave those as is, and we're going to begin to distinguish the difference between global and not global. For now, let's say that this is not going to be global. Now I'm going to go back to making it a color that I know doesn't exist here, just so I can distinguish it. So I went with, again, with like a bit of a pinkish, because if I look over here, I know this is not in existence. And there we go. So that's my new color. So I made it on the one hand because I double clicked here and chose something, and then I modified it by double clicking it in here. So there's two ways I could have I could approach that. Now let's go ahead and make a new box. So select and click away. And let's make a new box. And if you want to try to make one that's identical, remember that the best way is to select the one you have, hold down the Option key and drag over, and then you get one that's identical. So if I wanted to make a new color, I could either double click here and modify an existing one, or go over to this box here, double click, and create something different. The thing about creating something different from here, and I'm going to say okay to that, is that it won't show up as a swatch automatically, right? See how the green little thingy isn't, this thing that I just made isn't there? So how can we have it show up automatically from here? You can't. Just from here, you can't. So you have to always remember that this is a color that you really like. You have to go back here and click on that guy. That's all it takes. And then say, okay. And now you have it there. Oh, and by the way, let's turn the global off again. So now I've made two new colors of my own that don't exist anywhere else. All right. There's some other tools that used to come in the essentials that don't come here anymore, but let's go and bring them up. Let's go to Window and notice that there's something called Color and Color Guide. There's some color words here. So let's open the color one. And when we do that, oh, I didn't mean to separate them. When we do that, we get to a box that's called Color and Color Guide. There's two different tabs, and I'm going to move them, Color and Color Guide. So in this box, there's Color and Color Guide. Since I want this box now to show you what it does, and it's loose, I'm going to grab it from this top part, and I'm going to put my mouse right here. And when it goes blue, I'm going to drag it in. And when I see a little blue box there, not when I see a whole blue line, when I see a little tiny blue box appear, I'll let go. And there, I've put in my palette with color and color guide into my tools palette. So let me know if you all have managed to open the color guide palettes and put them in your column. Give me a yes if that's working for you. All right. Peggy. Yeah.
I missed the first step. I was busy
Mhm.
turning my thing blue, my thing light green. So,
Okay, so go up to Window
okay.
and pull up the color palette.
Color or color guide?
Either one,
Okay.
because it's you wouldn't know yet, but
Okay.
it's a
Alright.
group,
I
right?
see it.
And then
And over
when it
there.
first arrives is kind of a floater. So
Mhm.
now from that top bar, you can dump it in there
Yep.
just so that it stays
Perfect.
if you want it at all. So of the two, we're going to start with color. And when you look at this, it's kind of similar-ish to when we had selected this and double clicked on a color, sorry, right? And that what it's showing you is the CMYK tones. You see that? But there's one thing that that color has that this doesn't. So I'm going to cancel that. So this, I didn't want you to, one thing this color has, by the way, let's actually make another box. Sorry. So I'm going to grab this one and copy that one. So one thing that this has that the other one didn't, first of all, I can make it a little bit longer down here, and that helps. And it's kind of two in one. It's a combo of that one and that one because I can put my mouse over this area and it turns into an eyedropper. And then I can kind of click around here and search visually for that tone that I'm looking for. Does that make sense? So say that I wanted whatever it is, whatever color, I don't care what color your guys are creating. I just want something that ideally doesn't look like any of the original colors in there, although it's kind of hard to tell if you don't really know them very well. But here we go. You've made that. Okay. That said, if you want that to be so you've made a new color, but if you still want it to be a new swatch, you still need to go open this and place on that little new swatch thing. Again, let's turn off the global and let's say okay. So you kind of end up having to go back there. Here you can choose colors, and you can also use the CMYK, so you can do it with your fingers. You can also kind of move it around here and there until you get a color that you want. But now when I double click, the color that I left behind is that pinkish one. I modified it, I have to make another swatch, okay? So every time I make a new color, modifying it or changing it, if I want to keep it as is, I have to make a new swatch. So now I have that pinkish one disappeared because I modified it. But fortunately, I had kept it as, sorry, not over there, sorry, I had kept it as a little swatch. So right there, I managed to save it. So I've made 4 new colors, right? And these 4 new colors, let's see if I can manage to fit them in the same line. I might have to make them a bit smaller. Select them and make them a tad smaller. There we go. So these are all new colors that I've made. And not only that, but I've managed to, oops, I managed to make them not only did I make the color, but I made them into a swatch, and that's important. Now, there's so many other things that we can do with how to make colors. Right now, this is the basics of making color. I also want to show you one more thing. What if I select all of them? Okay, so hopefully you have at least 1 or 2, hopefully you have 4 different boxes with colors. When you select more than an object with more than 1 color, you know that you get a question mark over here, right? So you go over here and it doesn't show you a selection of any of them because it's the whole group. But what you can do right now is you can go, you know what, these 4 colors that I just made, I want to make them my own little group of colors I just made. So you can go down here to this little, like a little manila folder thing and click on that and call it, I don't know, I'm just call it my colors right now. And you could have selected swatches, you could whatever. In this case, it knows to make them out of the selected artwork. Okay. And I'm going to say, okay. So now I have a new little group here. And by the way, if you wonder why there's a black, it's because I still had a black stroke. So it's considering all the colors that are here and into making that group. So it's got the 4 new colors plus it's included black. Does that make sense? Did that work? If you all got a group with your colors, even if it's 2 or 3 colors, whatever, how many colors you managed to put in there, as long as you have something with colors, give me a yes.
Can you do the grouping one more time?
Yeah. Wondering what's up with my chat. You guys had written in the chat, hadn't you? Yeah. So on this computer, I'm seeing them, but on this one, I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing any. Huh. Okay. Somehow in my other computer, my chat is empty, which is bizarre. You guys are all seeing the things I'm writing in the chat, right? Okay. Okay. But on this one, it's just that this is not where I normally look at my chats because this is where I have no space. Moni, you just wrote good morning and I see it in that one, but everything else disappeared. All right. Well, there we go. Never mind. That's life. All right. So, sorry, I noticed when I looked up to see if you guys had said yes or no is when I noticed the chat, so I got distracted. Oh, I forgot to turn on the AI. I'm starting the summary right now. If anyone remembers, it's too late. This is our last class, but in the future, if anyone remembers, if you've been enjoying the summaries, remind me to turn it on because I have to stop share first and to turn it on. There. So we are an hour into the class and a bit less, and I just turned on the summary, but oh well. So the question was, if you've managed to do a group with your new colors, give me a yes. And if there's any questions you have about it or how to make the colors or something, then give me a
So here, let me take. So
Oh, Moni, I'm sorry. I was clicking around and I muted you. There you go.
so I forgot about grouping it and I didn't quite catch it when you presented it. Can you
Okay, and
go over that again?
I'm seeing that only one person said yes, so I guess it's not just you. So let me share my screen again. So let me go back to Illustrator. Okay, so let me actually grab this and get rid of it. Okay, so what I did was I selected my swatches, all of the ones that have new colors that I made, and then I went and clicked on this little folder. The new swatch doesn't appear because I have 4 things selected and no selection is on my swatches. But by selecting them all, this little box here, when I click on it one time, it says, oh, you want to make a color group of these? And I'm going to color, yeah. So my new colors, I gave it a name, and then I'll just say, okay. And then that became my new group of my new swatches. With the caveat that we didn't make the black, but it doesn't care if I made him or not. It only cares that I grouped them. And so black was part of this group, and that's why that group is there. I could select this black from here. Whoops, I can't right now. I have to, sorry, undo that. Click away so nothing is selected, right? And if I now wanted to make, let's make a box. Let's do this. Let's select all of these and drag and make a whole new set of these. Okay. So now I've got the same ones in a new set. And now when I click on these guys, I don't want to lose you guys behind. Did anyone manage to make the group? Y'all good with that now? Okay. Now when I go over here, if I make again this group, this time, let's say convert the process to global. Okay, convert the process to global. And this is going to be my global colors. That way I can distinguish them. And I'm going to say, okay. So notice that now I have the same set of colors, but now they're global, which I could have done before. Remember I said that I could have just gone to one of these, let me just say there, and double clicked and turn it into global over there. But it so happens that now I have the same colors in non-global and in global. So if you got this, one group of your colors in not global, it's called process versus global, and one color in global. If you got that, give me a yes. If you want me to help you show you how to do that again, then give me a no or ask for help. Basically, all I did is I selected the new set. Well, first of all, I had to create a copy, right? And then when I created the group, I had to click on convert to global. So Claudie and Rachel, you guys need a hand with that?
Yeah, I need a hand.
Okay. So do you want to share your screen or do you want to ask what's the,
Sure, I'll share my screen.
okay, good.
Mhm.
All right. So head over to, just to make it a bit easier right now, delete this third row and you'll see why. Just hit the delete key and they'll all disappear because they're all selected. Just, they're selected already. So hit your delete key on your keyboard and they'll all go away. Yep. And now select the second row. Okay. So now go over to the appearance thing, which has a question mark, because since you have 4 at a time, you can't. Right here. Nope, down here.
Wait, let me move this over.
Oh, okay. So under the appearance where we get the swatches box is always from here. Not
Mm.
that's, we don't get the swatches from there. in the properties, that's under here. That's where we pick up our swatches. That's a whole different thing. So
Mhm.
just to not get confused, why don't you click on this again to have it disappear out of, get it out of the way? Yeah, okay, and now open this question mark. This is always the default swatches, plus the ones that we've made. Oh, okay. So I see what's happening is that you had the new ones that you had made before, you had made them
Mhm.
global. So that's okay. First of all, you have an extra group there that had no colors in it. So go ahead and select that group and then take it to the, take a little trash. Yeah, there we go. So now this group that you have here is mostly global except for the last one, right? So just do me a favor, double click on this guy. Yeah, and then turn it into global. That way you have a whole group that's all global. Okay, good. And then did you double click on the little folder part that holds it? And you right now you can call it up here, call it global, my global. This is, you guys haven't shown you this window yet, but it's, you'll see it later, but just call it my global. That's another place to. Okay, and now say okay. Okay, good. So now you have the global one, okay? Now, so because you had one selected instead of all, okay, so that's fine. So go ahead and head over to each one of these now and give them the right colors. By doing it that way, I kind of got to. So go ahead and select only one. I click away first to deselect. Just click here and then click on one. And then
Mhm.
use this to give it the burgundy, The second, no, hold on. I guess it's okay. It's okay, go for it. Yeah. You can use either one of them. And later I'm going to show you why it matters which one you use, but go ahead. Okay, good. So now you have yours set up. Okay. All
Mhm.
right. Now the thing is that all your colors are global. So we're going to do the opposite. We're going to select this group now, right there.
Okay, then move more.
Click and drag kind of where I just put my circle. If you kind of do that, that's enough. A little bit. Yep. Let me get rid of my color thing. Okay. And now go over here to the fill. And now we're going to make, oh, you still have that one. Okay. Now go here and make a new one, but this time go ahead and make a new one. I'm just trying to end, it's hard to go it back. I was trying to do it back. Go ahead and say cancel. The reason it's hard, what I'm trying to show you is hard is because you had made all your colors global from the start, and that might have happened to the rest of you guys. So I need you to double click on this. These, see how your dark purple over here is not global?
Mhm.
Just double click on it and turn it into global. Oh, yeah, double click and turn it up here into global. Okay, say okay. Now get rid of one of these again, because when we did the second box, it created a new one that we didn't want. So delete it. Yeah. Okay. And now we're going to have to go back to each one of these here and turn off the global. I should have caught you a bit earlier because each one of these has to be non-global now. So go up here and double click on this one and turn off the global. I haven't even explained to you what global is, so that's why it's so frustrating for you probably. So just say okay. And then do the next one. Well, yeah. Okay. And then do the next one and so on and so forth. Turn the global portion off of all of them. And now the last one. Okay, great. All right. And now, for better or for worse, you need to go back to selecting an individual and call these and make these non-global. Okay. So select. Yeah, perfect. And color them with the top group. go with this one and that one and that one.
Mm,
Yep, there. And I did it in a roundabout way, so I probably could have fixed this a bit easier, but I was trying to get you the group first. Okay, so now select these 4 that are all non-global. And now make a new group over there. And then call this one my colors or non-global or whatever. Non-global, that way you can see the difference or whatever. Just call it non-global for now. Okay. And then say okay to that. Oops, let me take all my pink out. Okay. So now you have the 2 groups. Oh, why did it happen again? Oh. Here, give me can I have a second, because I don't want to, it was my mistake in how I guided you that it keeps being a little bit wrong. So hold on for a minute. I need to because we keep changing the original ones. So now you have your non-global. I'm gonna get rid of that group. Okay. And then this one here, I'm going to make a new group. I'm gonna convert them to global and say, okay, so this is gonna be, I forgot to change the name of it. Okay. Now you have one group that's not global and one that's global. You see how they're exact same colors and one is
Mhm.
blank and one is not. And the problem is that I had you selecting a group and then changing it and then going back to select it. So then they were all changing back. So I was kind of not being as clear as I had. Basically, just to clarify so that it doesn't seem like, oh, I have no idea what happened for you guys or for anyone watching. When you make a color, right? Let me modify it with this. So I'm making a purple here. You
Mhm.
get to choose when you click on that little when you click on this on the swatch and you make it. You get to choose at the moment if you want it global or not global, right? So in the moment that you made that first one originally, Rachel, you had made it not global because I told you to, but then all the other rest you had left them on global. Global is a default. So you need to purposely turn it off. Okay. And that's all that had happened. It's a tiny thing, but then you had some here that were one or some here that were another. So when you grabbed them and put them in a group, you had some that were and some that weren't, right? Because they followed that set, right? I'm going to delete the color I just called. So then we had to rematch, but then one was always off in the right set. So it's hopefully next time you make a new color, you'll start by making it global and not global, and then that'll work. But I'm about to teach you why global or not global matters, and then you'll understand. Right now, it's just a word, and so it's like, well, so who cares, right? So give me a second. We're going to continue with this, and then you'll understand the reasoning, so to say, because right now it's just like more like a technicality. All right. Let me clear your feedback, and then hopefully when we get back to this, Rachel, you can do it on your own. Because when I guide people to do it, click here, click here, click here with the pink things, it's not the best way to learn anyway, because you're just kind of doing what I tell you, but then it's hard to process it, right? So I still do want you to process your own thoughts in a minute. But for now, since we're at it, go ahead and select one of these and click this on, and then give me a screenshot of this. And I know we can't, right now, the only thing that we can do is see that we have 2 rows of the same colors and that one is painted with global and one is not, and that's all we can do. And then let's put that in the Padlet. Let me get the Padlet link out there again to you guys in case you don't have it. And there we go. Okay. So what was this whole global or not global? What's the point of it? Let's go ahead and make over here. We're gonna make, let's start with some circles this time, or stars. Stars are more fun. Nah, let's do circles. I don't need fun, I want clear. I'm gonna make a circle. And right now, I have no idea what color it's filled with, because I don't remember which one of these I was holding before. It looks like it's this color, but you both know, you all know that these are two different colors that happen to look exactly the same, because they are CMYK, whatever they are, but one is global and one is not global. But I can't tell which one this is filled with, or at least I don't remember what was my last selected one. But if I go over here, I'll see a little white box around the one that's selected. Does that make sense? Okay, so now it turns out that mine here is painted with the non-global. And now I'm going to make that same circle. So I'm going to go back to my selection key. I'm going to drag it and I'm going to fill this page with that color that's non-global. Okay. So I've got a bunch of that non-global. And then I'm going to copy, paste, or drag and fill that page here. But this time I'm going to select and give it the global version of itself, which is the one with the little triangle. So nothing much seems to have changed because they look identical, right? But I'm making sure that it's filled with a global. So non-global and global. 90% of the time, I mean, no one other than you would know there's any different right now. So why does it matter? First of all, let's save this file since we've been working for it a while. Remember to save to your computer. And let's call this one just colors practice, I guess. Colors. All right. Give me a yes if you got this. A group of 4 things colored non-global and 4 things colored with global. And I'm happy to help this again. Basically, make a bunch of circles, select 4 of them, click on the little, like you can do this one or this one. This is the same, it doesn't matter, non-global, and then select the other 4 and fill them with the global version. That's all. If you have that, you're good. Peggy, can I help?
Just still working on it.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't
But
want to move.
as long as there's no need to clarify, work on it is perfect. All right. Sorry, I was reading that I had some text straight to me in the chat. Okay. All good, Peggy? Do I need to give you a hand? You all good? Okay, good. All right. So, the biggest difference is going to be now, imagine, right, that this document, and you can just imagine this part, right? I'm going to go ahead and do it. You don't need to do this portion. We'll do it later. You can do it later, but right now, let's imagine that I have many more pages, and I'm going to make them really tiny, right? So this document has many more pages. Imagine that this is like a book or something, and each one is a page in that book. So I'm going to copy, right, this one, and I'm going to put it here and here. Just watch. This is so that you understand what's happening. And I guess I should have made it, you know what? This is not a good idea because I should have made him a little bit bigger. Let me do this again. I'm going to make a bunch of artboards like that. It's a little bigger, and then some here just because I'm doing this. So this is just a teaching thing. You don't need to come back and do this for now. Okay. So this is my explanation of, you have a book with a ton of, say that it's a book that you have the same logo repeated in all the pages, right? And so in this one here is one book, and you repeated this logo everywhere. And then now I'm copying the non-global. So you have a book and you have a ton of pages and you have that one, right? So you go and you show it to your boss, your client, your coworker, whoever it is that makes choices with color other than yourself, and they go, yeah, it's good, but God, that's so pale. Don't you think it should be a bit brighter? Or I don't like pinks, like make it green, or whatever they can say about the color. I assure you, clients and bosses, so to say, whoever is your director and stuff like that, they do tend to love what you do, but how about if, right? And there's a little change. So here's the thing. If you had made this object in many different pages, so now you click on this and you go, okay, well, it doesn't need to be that color. Maybe let me double click on it, and maybe we can make it a bit pinker, or would you prefer it a bit yellower? Or maybe you just want that bit darker. And they go, ooh, yeah, I want it completely different. I want it to be teal. I'm like, okay, there we go. I'll change all my pale pinks to teal, right? Okay, we did that. So now we have to go to every part in my document where I had put that little logo in pale pink. And I have to select it and go get that pale teal. And I go, ooh, let's fill it with that. And then, ooh, let's fill it with that. And if you have it in multiple, because here you could just do that. It's very easy, right? And this is why I had you go. But what if this is a page, this is a page, this is a page, this is a page? Like literally you're in different pages and you have flowers and buildings and stuff. And suddenly it's the logo only. You can't just select the whole page. You have to individually go and select each one. Does that make sense? And if you have, 400 pages, or if that little logo appears, maybe it's the petals of the flowers that had a green that didn't print well, and you have to go to all the petals in your flowers and make them all a new tone of green. Got it? That would take a lot of work. Instead, had you chosen to make this with a global color, and your client, your whatever, your printer says that pink is horrible, you need to make it more whatever. Now we're going to double click on the global color, and we're going to make it teal. And guess what's happening? It's changing everywhere. Does that make sense? And it's happening for you guys here, so you don't need to do the 4, but I was trying, that's why if you want to do more, but I was trying to make the point that what if you have this element repeated everywhere? And more than a logo, what if you made a flower with, 5 or 6 petals, and then you repeated that flower 20 times? And suddenly that green doesn't work. When you print it, it looks like it's a dead stalk, and you need to make it greener because the flower is a beautiful color and the stalk of green is horrible. So then you would have to select each little petal if it wasn't global. And in this case, you just change it and they all change. The way I'm painting it, this is an advantage. The way I'm describing it to you, this is an advantage, right? But be aware that it can be a disadvantage to paint with a global color when you're actually trying to get nuances. What if that same flower, you had given it a little bit of a different tone of green in each leaf, right? Because you just wanted different colors of the flower to look a bit more natural, petals maybe, or leaves. If you paint those in global, and you try to change them, they're all going to change. And you're like, no, I only wanted to change this one. I don't want the other one to change. I want this flower from this page to look different from the flower from the other page. I don't want people to think I copied the flower 4 times. I want them to think it's a new flower. So then if you have global colors, it's a problem because they all change. Does that make sense? So it's not that one is better than the other. It depends on your needs. If you know that you have an element that's going to be repeated everywhere, identically, you better make it global. But if your intention is to make one flower and then have that flower, repeated, and then you'll move a leaf here, move a leaf there, move the petal a little bit and have it look like a new flower, but you do that 10 times, then you better not have them be global. Okay? If you got the concept, give me a yes. If it worked for you, and you don't need to have these, but if it worked for you that by changing this color, they all changed, right? Versus by changing this color, only one changed, right? Then you got the message. Like these you need to change individually, and these change everywhere. So there's no goodies and baddies here. There's just what's your need for that color. An example that I used to demo, I don't have it in the class files right now. I learned this the hard way. Eons ago, when I was young this is something that's been around forever. When I was young in my use of Illustrator, I was working on a book that someone else had designed, and it was all illustrated in Illustrator. And I had to modify the format. Anyway, we were just turning it from a square book into the other way. It had been designed rectangular, and we were turning it into square to go into Instagram. So at that point, never mind, long stories, it had to be square. It's before Instagram could be any shape. And so we had to take all the skies, and they were all the same blue. We had to just change the sky to a different tone that was better for the internet, and the bird's beak was different and the wings were different. But I didn't know that yet. Every single one of those parts and pieces, we had made one bird look much better in page 1. And then we had to go and make every one of those little parts and pieces of every one of those birds, and all 20 pages change individually because the designer had used only non-global colors. But the bird was the same one everywhere. And so she had just copied and pasted the bird each time and moved it, and life was good. But as someone who had to then change the colors of the first one, I had to go and I can't tell you how much Illustrator I learned in that class too, because that's when I learned to start grouping the bird, because she hadn't grouped anything. The designer hadn't grouped anything. And I had to go find the beak over here, the leg over here, the part of the wing over there. And it was, I learned grouping and colors and stuff like that. So you never know. You take on a job and you think you'll do it in, 2 days. And it took me probably, I don't know, like 2 weeks. I lost a lot of money, but I learned a ton. So nothing's ever bad. Because I hadn't thought of checking what the designer do. Like how had she set up the file, right? And I thought most people know to make groups, and most people know to use colors, but I guess this designer did this. She wasn't a designer, she was an artist. She made the thing and she didn't know about those things. And so it was hard to deal with her files. Anyway, grouping and not grouping, colors or not colors, you choose. So even if it looks like the exact same color, these are 2 different sets of colors. That's the main point I was making. All right. Now, since this is set, and at least I've used quite a few of my pages, what I like us to do now is, do you still have like a page and a half, everyone? Yeah, or have you used up all your pages? If you still have some space, that's fine. If you haven't, then just maybe go to the artboard tool and just make 1 or 2 more pages to make a bit of space, because I have one more thing I want to do in this document before I move to a different document. So I have a little bit of space here, so I'm going to do it here. So what if instead, so I'm going to grab the second group here, and I'm going to copy it again. The top or the bottom group, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to zoom in. And now, what if I don't want to sit here and design every color on my own? What if I want to have colors that are ready to go, like sets of colors that someone's already designed or chosen for me? Let's go ahead and head over. There's, again, so many different places to do this from, but let's go over here to the good old palette of default sets of colors. Let's go ahead and go to, there's a little icon over here in the bottom left of this palette that it's hard to distinguish it, but it's like books and a little leaning book. It's like a bookshelf, and it's because it's the libraries. So it's a little bit of set of books. But anyway, it's this little thing here. You click on that. You have a whole bunch of different predefined colors that were set up by a designer, right? So I'm going to start with the top one, art history. I'm going to go to ancient colors. And this thing popped open. And it's someone made a group, not a group, like a set of groups of what they consider ancient colors. And I can use them. I can go, how about that one? How about that one? How about that one? I can choose. Ooh, I like that one. I like that. I like this. Oh, there's the color. Like I'm not having to invent them. They're there. And then I'll go, oh, I really like that one. That's the perfect color. I could have never come up with this color. I want it, right? So this is not my palette of colors. It's like someone's showing me a little sample. I go to paint my walls at, go to the store and I've seen the swatches. Now I want to buy it. I have to actually go and purchase it. So this would be purchasing it. I could go over here and I want it here, right? So if I double click on the color and I look over here, you guys can't tell because that's the one I had started with. It turned into that one. Let me just say that if I really like it, let me choose one that's not so obvious because it doesn't look like theirs. Okay. No, these all look so much like my colors this time that it's hard to tell. But anyway, this little palish orange, I can go ahead and make a swatch out of it, right? And call it something. Or I can say, I like this entire set of colors. All of this is really nice. I like every one of these. Okay. So, and I'm opening this one for you guys to see what's happening. I'm going to double click on this group because I really like this group. I double clicked on the group. That's all I did. See how it all lit up? I double clicked on the group. When I go over here, I have transferred it to my color palettes. I'm grabbing this and I'm making it a little bit bigger from the corner. If you grab this color palettes from here, you can make it bigger. Now, to make this clearer, I'm going to choose a color they're much brighter because these are hard to tell. Let me close this ancient, go back over here, and I'm going to choose a color really bright. Foods, sweets, those are probably pretty bright. Yeah. These don't look like the colors that I have. So I'm going to say that I really, really, really like this set of colors. I'm going to double click on it. If I look over there, I have brought those colors over. Does that make sense? But now I see that I have my ancient and my sweets are both up because these are the choices. I can make so many different choices here. Foods, nature, stone and brick. All my stone and brick colors come up. And I want this set right there. I'm going to double click. It's colors of stone. I go over here. Now I have my colors of stone. Right? So I'm using pre-made sets of colors. skin tones. There don't seem to be enough variation in these skin tones to be actual skin tones, but anyway, let's double click on some dark tones. I brought them in. So this is a library from which we pick what we want, right? We take what we want and we choose them. Now, some of these, pop art. I'm gonna go with those colors. Okay, so when I'm done and I turn that off, I have all these colors to work from. So now I can say, well, I want these to be colored in pop art colors. So I'm going to select that one, then I'm going to select that one, then I'm going to select this one, and this last one. Okay, so this was selected from the library. Okay, I didn't have to make them myself. If I go to them and I double click, they're just CMYK, they don't have names, they're just colors. If this worked for you, did you transfer some colors over and it's all good? Then some families of colors, so to say, some presets of colors, and recolored them, then give me a yes. If you want to know more about the libraries, I'm going to go to some others. You might be noticing that there's patterns and other stuff, but I just went with colors right now. Let's go ahead and make one more row wherever you can, or if you have space. I'm going to select them all, right over a bit. I was trying to make them fit. There we go. All right. It's okay if you're on the next page by now, but since I'm here, I'm kind of using the same room. So now I'm going to select one of these new ones. I'm going to go back to my fill. I'm going to go back to my libraries, but this time, instead of choosing colors, I'm going to go to, for example, patterns and basic graphics and dots, for example. And what I have here, instead of a bunch of colors, is a bunch of different like dot patterns. And I'm going to choose that dot pattern. Or, how about this dot pattern? Or, how about this dot pattern? So I've chosen 3 dot patterns, right? Well, here's the thing about patterns. All I did was choose them. And if I look over here, I have brought every one of them. I chose 3. Remember, big circles, big dots, tiny dots, and gradient dots. They just came over. I didn't have to double click. I didn't have to choose them. I was just looking around for them, but they all came over. You see that? So let's do that again. I'm going to choose the second box now. Go choose a pattern. I'm going to go with lines this time. And I'm going to test out these lines. And then I'm going to go, how about these lines instead? And then how about those lines instead? So I've just clicked on 3 just to see them. And lo and behold, I brought 3 lines over. If you see how that happened, give me a yes. If you can see by choosing patterns that these don't come in as a group, but the moment you click on them, they get transferred. They get added to your default setup there. All right. And anyone who needs a hand or help, if you're just working on it, that's good. If you have a question about it, let me know. I'm going to go to the next box and I'm going to show you that there's other stuff that's here. Under patterns, there's something called decorative, right? Or nature and foliage. Let's go with nature animal skins. And when I click on that, I try that one or that one or this one. And when I look over there, same thing. Boom, boom, boom. I'm bringing them in. So patterns come in just when you touch them. So does that mean you're stuck with them? Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, you could go over here later and get rid of some of them, but for now, let's assume that you're stuck with them because they're coming in. And let's see what other category of stuff is in here is you have some where are they? Where are the like metal, where are the gradients? I'm having here, gradients. So maybe you want to look at some gradients, and we haven't talked about gradients yet, so we're going to in a minute, but say that I want some metals, gradients that are metals. And so now I want some golds or some silvers or some coppers or whatever. Patina of green. Okay, so I clicked on a whole bunch of different ones and there they are. I brought them all in. Okay, so the color groups, you have to double click for the color groups to come in. The ones that aren't color groups, right? So maybe there you'll find some other thing that is not color groups. They, the moment you click them, they come in. So now we've brought a little bit of everything in here. Go ahead and save. And either speak up, or there's so few of you, raise your hand, do something if you have any questions. Other than that, we're gonna move on. We're gonna save this, and I want to show you one more thing, and then we're gonna take our break. That way, when we come back, we move on to something else. Any questions? Any ifs, buts, whens, wheres? Nothing? All right. This is what I wanted to show you. Let's go ahead and make a new document file. That's why I save this one. Okay, file, save, and then make a new document and say, okay, create it. Now go make a rectangle, a star, a shape, whatever you want. And then let's go color it with those nice little gradients that we just made. And whoa, where did they go? They do not transfer. You're back to the basic set, the basic default palette. I made a new document and all the choices I just made were left behind in this place. Does that make sense, you guys? And by the way, to make this bigger, you click over here and you can keep dragging. So this, all of the work that I did in here, I don't have it here. So there's 2 or 3 different ways to transfer all these colors, and I'm going to show you a bunch of them. But right now, all I wanted to show you is that they don't transfer. So the quickest way, if you have a file, if you start a new file and you go, ooh, I want to use that color that I used for, I don't know, that I used when I made the baby shower invitation, whatever. If you have that file there, you open that file, you copy whatever that color was by copying the shape. So say that you had made a little something here. You copy, Command C, literally copy, or right click, Control Command C. You go over here and you paste it. You didn't want a square, you just wanted the color. And guess what? The swatch was this not made into a swatch? Hello? That swatch didn't transfer over? Is that? Oh yeah, the global one came. Why didn't the other one come? Well, because I chose it from From the group it's copying, but I guess the other one I had chosen from there. How weird. Oh, I hadn't copied. Let me choose that one, copy. It's interesting. The ones that are not that are not global, which are these four, are not copying automatically. As long as it was a swatch in the past, the swatch would copy. Are they limiting? Now I'm really curious. Now I want to know what's up. So this color here is a swatch that is non-global. All the ones I brought in are non-global. Let me color one of these that are bright yellow. Copy. And bring it over here and paste. Huh. Well, look at that. So now the only ones that are coming in as swatches are the ones that are global. The rest just come in and you have to make it into a swatch yourself again, which isn't that hard, but you need to remember that's weird. So and I'll just put a plus sign, say, okay, and I've made it into a swatch. So it's not that hard, but why? So now I've got them all as swatches, but for the two that were originally global, they came automatically. And for the two that I brought that were not global, I had to create a plus sign, a swatch this time to make them. That's bizarre. You select these four and copy. In the past, you could just bring them in and they'd come in. They're not. Okay, well, that's a learning thing that I've had. That if it's not global, I mean, it's not that hard. I just brought all those in, right? I can just make them individually global. But yeah, that's an extra step. So there we go. I wanted to show you how easy it is to bring a color over, but it's actually one extra step. That said, bringing these over and making them into swatches is much easier than inventing this palette again. Does that make sense? So we're still much better off than having to reinvent them. Yeah, so that's weird. Okay. All right. This was just to show you that it did or didn't transfer. So we don't need this one right now. So we can empty it out and say don't save. And then this is the one that we do want to save. And then we're going to take our break if there's no questions. And then when we come back, we will work on something else. Oh, please make screenshots of this whole situation. All the colors that you brought in. Oh, select one of these guys. And that's true. Show me your, have the screenshot show the colors and the gradients and all of the groups that we brought in and that kind of thing. I'm going to do that as my screenshot. And then let's go back to the chat and copy the thing and put the Padlet in, which I see I just put in. And let's go to the Padlet. And I see people have been putting a little bit of this stuff. Let's put a little bit more. Okay, put the colors and the Padlet, and there we go. Great. Cool. Okay. No questions? Time for break? All right. So it's 10:46. Be back at, oh, well, that'll be 11. Ooh, when. See you guys in 15. All right. Guys, come on back. Come on back. All right. So I have a lot more that I want to show you about color, but I just wanted to interrupt the process and show you something kind of fun, which I've shown, but not consistently. So maybe some of you guys know this and some of you guys don't. So let me share my screen. Okay. And let's go ahead and make a new file. And this one, let's go ahead and make let's start with just, it's a little rectangle here. Let's give it a color since this is a new document and we haven't brought the colors over. Let's just use regular colors that exist over here. I'm going to go with yellow, orange. And then let's make a circle over here. And let's give it another color. How about that one? I don't know how that'll work. Okay, it can be two different colors. And I'm going to give them like very different shapes. Like this is oblong and this is something like that. Okay. Notice that I left some space here. All right. So now we're going to select both of these, right? Click, shift, click, or click and drag to select both. And there's a tool over here called blend. We can also go up to object blend or whatever, but there's a tool called blend. So I'm going to just click on that. Double click on it, I guess. No, I click on it. It was hiding behind the double click on it. It was hiding behind Zoom. There we go. My box is appearing on the other side of the screen. Actually, let me cancel because my box is, I moved Illustrator out to see this. And no, it was outside of my screen level. Okay, there we go. So we double click and we have this. And let's just go ahead and make no changes and just say, okay. What? It's so weird. I've not used this tool before. I've always done it from the object blend, so I thought we could do it with this tool, but okay. I'm not sure. Let's do this. I'm going to do it as I normally do it because I mean, it's working, but I'm not 100% sure which is the right direction to make this one work in. So let's just do it how I normally do it, and then I'll try to figure this one out. So it's object, blend, make. And then the blend happens. Now we want to wonder what it is that's happening. I can go to object blend options, or since this is a blend, I'm getting blend options way over here. And it gives me a choice to go down to specified steps. And let's say that I want to say 10 steps. And I'll say, okay. Now, let me just do all those steps again. Undo, 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 undo. Okay, so I selected both shapes. I went up to Object, Blend, Make. And then I went over here to the blend options. And I choose steps instead of smooth color. And I started with just a number 10. And then I said, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom into that. Now, obviously, one object is blending into another as far as shape is concerned, and also as far as color is concerned. Depending on the color you got, sometimes is a bit murkier, not in the middle. As long as this worked, I'm going to tell you details and stuff about this, but did this work? If this worked, give me a yes. Okay. So this, if I look in the layers, if I go to layers, it doesn't show me each one of these little bits. It just shows me the first, the second, and the path. And the path, which is that, which just goes straight in and out. That's it. It doesn't show me. It's not like this became a shape on its own and this became a shape on its own yet. It can, but not yet. So if I were to make this now smaller or taller in the bounding box, right? So black selection tool, skinnier or not, as usual, the whole thing is getting taller, skinnier, or whatever. Let's take the stroke off for a second. I'm going to go to stroke. I'm going to say no stroke. So then the color blends a little bit nicer if color is what matters. If what matters is shape, we can also take the stroke off. But what I want us to do right now is to see if I can change these shapes. And guess what? If I double click and double click, I can isolate the first shape and change it, and everything changes. I can double click on this one and change that. Pretty cool. Well, at least Claudia is smiling. Now, it's kind of cool because I'm going over in the other direction. I kind of like that. When I chose to have only 10 steps is so that you guys could really see the steps. You know, I'm going to hit escape to be out of escalation mode, but I could also still select the blend options, and I can choose 3 steps. You know, the steps are in the between. These are not considered steps, beginning and ending, right? I could go to blend options and I can actually choose 250 steps and say, okay. And then it kind of looks like a gradient, doesn't it? Now, the reason the first one looked so weird and dark is because we had a stroke. So then there were so many that what we're seeing is the stroke. You see that? Had I made the stroke much skinnier, that would have been a little bit better. But ultimately, in this case, let's just have no stroke. But really, I do have a whole bunch of shapes in there. I just have so many that it kind of looks like a gradient. I'm going to go ahead and say blend options again and go back to a more handleable number of steps. Let's say 10 again. If this is working, say, give me, you know, give me a yes. If you haven't, there's more to this, but is there any questions right now?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, my hand disappeared. So for some reason, I can't get rid of my stroke. I've tried all these different ways, and it doesn't. Oh,
Okay.
now
Are you in get into escape? Don't get it. Make sure you're not in
oh, that's
isolation mode.
probably what it is.
I don't know.
Let me
Maybe.
see.
I don't know if it's that, but that's one thing.
Uh,
Because it's the whole shape. When you're in isolation mode, you're selecting one, but I
yeah,
don't know
that
that.
might have been what it was. I don't know.
Let's see. Let's see. No, that'll still give it to me in one, but
I must have clicked on something because it was not allowing me. It showed me the stroke, but it wasn't. Now it's working.
okay.
So I
no,
had,
maybe it just needs to redraw.
yeah.
Who knows? All right, I'm gonna select the shape again, not in isolation mode. So if you've somehow got into isolation mode, hit the escape key so that you're not, and select and you have the whole blend. Let's go to blend options again. And the difference here, aligned to path or not, is like, okay, nothing's happening. Why is that? It's because right now our path is just a line. So let's see what we can do about that. Let me cancel. First of all, these are shapes. The initial and the bottom one are shapes. And if I were to double click and double click, I could, selecting the one, I could go in and I could add, for example, another curvature point, right? And change it right there. I could go and select the first one, double click, and I'm going to go to the grab of the curvature and I'm going to do that. So it gets pretty wild and fascinating when you are playing around with something other than just a basic little square and a rectangle. When you start doing things like shifting them in the position, I don't know, you can get some really cool stuff going here. Yeah. If you've managed to modify the initial shapes now with either the pen tool or the curvature tool, but you need to isolate, you need to double click, so you're in isolation mode. So you're just working with this one, and then you can add or take away parts or pieces from the paths. Okay. And then one thing that we haven't seen yet is there's the path itself. This line is going from there to there, following the center point of the original rectangle and the center point of the original circle. But I could go to that path and modify it. Sorry, not with the curvature tool, with the arrow tool, and go to the arrow tool. And I can select this and I can no, only with the pen tool then. Looks like the curvature tool didn't work because I haven't really taught you the pen tool. Oh yeah, you can on the curvature tool too. You need to make sure that you're right on the top of it, right? And then make sure it says plus. And then you can change the path that these shapes are taking. I'm going to move out and have a different tool now. So I've been able to change the position, the order, the direction. I mean, it's pretty incredible, right? What we can do with this. So you can add, so we have the two shapes and the path, which is why when I went into the labels, I'm going to show you it's three things. It's the initial shape, which now doesn't look like a rectangle. The initial shape doesn't look like an, and the path. The path is its own thing, right? If I make this a little bit bigger, that path, that's the one that I just went and added a curvature tool to. So you first need to select the blend, then choose either pen, but since I have really taught you more about the curvature tool, and then make sure that, see right now, it doesn't have a plus sign. Right now, this path is got a little asterisk behind it. So I'm going to make a new path. So you need to make sure that you are actually connecting with the path, which I found it better to use the white selection tool for that. I selected the path. And once the path is selected, then I was able to click on the curvature tool and add a shape to it, right? So that was just me adding a shape. So let me just show you again one more time. If I try to select the object with a regular black selection tool, if I try to access that path, it doesn't work because I'm only getting the asterisk, which means I would start a new path. So you need to first select that path. And to select that path, you still need to go the way that we did from the beginning, which is the white arrow tool. You select that path. Now all the rest disappears. And you can either play around with that yourself with the white arrow tool, right? You can do stuff there. Or if you if you want to add things to this, you could add it by moving with the pen tool or the curvature tool. And for you guys, let's go to just the curvature tool and add a stop. Okay, so if all of that worked, then when you go to, you have to leave again that path and select the whole blend. So you have to go back to selection tool. And you go to the blend options, then this makes a bit more sense now. Because before we had a straight line, so it didn't matter. But now that we have a curve, then the shapes right now are kind of going up on the curve. But if we click on that, they kind of spread around on the curve. Does that make sense? So that's the difference between these two, which at first, no matter what we did, since it wasn't a curve, it didn't make a difference, but now it does. Yes, Rachel?
Yeah, I can't seem to get the plus sign with the curvature tool.
Okay, so let me walk you through that one again. 1 second. Let me leave here. So first, so click away so that nothing is selected. Okay. Grab your selection tool, the black selection tool, and select it first. Then go get the white selection tool, which ultimately is the tool that we use to deform, distort, and reshape. You guys, it's the pen and the curvature tools are supposed to be to add or take away paths. But if you just want to manipulate what's there, the white selection tool is what's there. So now go click, because right now with the white selection tool, we have this shape selected, that shape selected, and the path. So let's now isolate that by selecting only the path. And I did that by clicking on one of its corners. And see how now this is the only thing and the others don't have selections? Now you can start playing around with that shape as is, or you can add or take away by adding, I have to be so careful, by adding with the curvature tool if you want more or less. So. And then you have to leave that again by going back to the selection tool. So you kind of have to clean it up. Make it a bit smaller so it can keep fitting in here. Now, that doesn't mean that I need to stick to that. I can go back to blend options and again, give it, you know, many more steps. I can give it again 150 steps. I don't know, say, okay. And now you have a little bit more weirdness going on because before it was a straight, smooth thing, but now really it's this shape and that shape. So then you start having some, you know, other stuff going on. But, you know, as long as you keep playing around with your shapes and moving things around and for a moment, this suddenly looked like the dune sandworm to me there. I don't know. Now, on top of everything that we've been doing, so now I'm not giving it an effect, but what I gave my original shape is a little sharp tip. So then I've got that thing going, which since it has so many steps, that's what it looks like. But if it had many less steps, if I had go back to 10, it would look kind of like, what's that, right? But in this case, with many steps, 250, suddenly it caused a slight effect. But I'm going to take that effect away, meaning I'm going to not have a tip going again, and that way it's all kind of rounded. And the reason I want to do this is to show you that you could still, at this point, choose to, hold on, let me get rid of some of these guys. Oh, I didn't mean to break just take some of these guys out. I have too many things going on. I'm just selecting a bunch of these little guys and deleting them because I had just so much going on that it was going crazy. Whoa, it's kind of fun. Things that are happening there. I'm curious to see what's, oh, because I have this point way out there. Let me bring it back in. All right. What I wanted to show you, and I'm going to go over here and start with just a basic circle because Odessa just joined us. She's back. So I'm going to go back to that crazy one, but I'm going to start again with just a regular circle. And polygon, doesn't matter what we make. And I'm going to select both and blend. And in this case, the choices of steps were 1 step or 3 steps or 4 steps, right? But in this case, there's not much difference in the shapes nor in colors. So let me choose one of them and give it a different color. We go from green to blue. There we go. So we can see it's a different one. So we're still stuck with the, in this case, I'm still stuck with the fact that in this one, it's straight. I haven't yet curved the path, right? But if I wanted to say own this, let me make my original shapes a little bit more different because I want my shapes to have, I want the middle shapes to be a bit different. So I'm going to go and modify the initial shape a bit more. Okay. So say that what I wanted now is that I want that shape, right? Not this one, not that one, not that one, but I want that one. And what I showed you in the layers is that this blend is only the first shape and the second shape and the path. These others don't necessarily exist. Does that make sense? If I want to modify them, I have to modify the beginning or the end one. So there is a possibility of going to blend and then say expand. Now, when I go away, each one of these has turned into its own shape. So I could select the middle shape or the bottom shape or one of them, it doesn't matter. And this is a group right now, right? So if I want to double click, and there's a shape that I caught out of doing this. So if my goal was the blend, that's great. But if my goal was to get a shape that might have been kind of hard to invent or make on my own, and in this case, it could have been that one, or in this weird case, maybe it's, let me just give it many less steps. I can see each one of these shapes. So say that this was 10 steps. Maybe this is the shape that I'm looking for right there. And I really like it. So then I can release the shape. Can I do it under blend options to release? No, I can't. I would really have to go up here to object, blend, not release. I'm sorry, release. Sorry, release gets rid of the blend. You're back to your initial 2 shapes, which in this case was this weird one. Let me actually go ahead and bring that back so that it doesn't keep having such a strange shape. Okay. Because that was going a bit too wacky for examples. So release gets rid of them. Let's make 2 shapes, blend, make. The opposite is release. Okay. Instead, what I did wasn't release. Let me just see my shapes. Let me go to blend options, smooth color, sorry, specified steps, and say again, 6, for example. If what I wanted was one of these middle pieces, then I'm not releasing, I am expanding. Expand. expanding has turned them all into individual pieces. And now I can select the piece, double click on it or not, or whatever it is that I want, and create it its own. Now, can I select all of these and make them blend again? Object, blend, make. Yeah, and now that's a different blend than before because I moved that bit, that it's like that little piece is now part of the blend. It's like 10 different pieces are blending. So anyway, that's like getting to the place where it's a bit too complicated for the demo. I'm going to undo that just so that you can go back to having one blend there. But yeah, so I have a blend and I have a expanded one over here where these shapes are now just a group. The last thing about this, actually, let me do one more thing and then we'll move on to something. I'm going to start again with just a very regular shape. I'm going to give it green. Let's not make it this. Let's make it a polygon in the middle or at the end and have this be, I don't know, bright pink. I don't think these colors are going to blend so well, but that's okay. Now let me give this one a star. So these are like weird shapes to blend, but just showing you colors now. Let me give this one a blue. So we have 3 distinct colors, right? Let me shape. And 3 very distinct shapes. And if I select all 3 now, right? And say object, blend, make. Oh, it's interesting. Okay. I wanted it to have the star in the middle, but I made that one last. So I actually in order need to put the star in the middle in my layers. Okay. So now I wanted to have the blend be of that shape in the middle. Here we go. So now this to us is giving us some interesting stuff going on with blends and colors, right? Because I'm going to shop some gradients, but right now I have a third object in there that I can manipulate, and that kind of causes and creates some interesting shapes with how these are going to blend. And this is one with many, many, many steps, right? So what's mainly happening here is that you're getting like the shadows of the edges of one over the shadows of the edges of another and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. Now, a lot of these things are, well, how am I going to use this? How am I going to use it? And by the way, if this were many less steps, it would be much harder to get anything out of it. Because when you're starting to have such complicated things, it works when you have a lot of steps to make it look like a gradient. If this was the 10 steps that we had before, you know, it's okay, but it doesn't make that effect so easy. So yeah, so you want to see what the number of levels that you want. Now, these all have a lot of steps. Let's go to one that has, let's do one last one, and then I'm going to move on to a different subject matter. So these are all demos. Let's do one more thing. I'm going to select that one and that one. And this one's gonna have a different color. It's kind of a bit more fun when it has a different color, but also it shows you more things. And go with that. Okay. Let me make this one long and thin, and that one's okay. So I'm gonna select these 2, and I'm gonna say blend again. Object, blend, make. And now in the blend options, if I go not just steps, right? I'm gonna go to like 10 steps. But also, I could also say specified distance. So I can say that I want, this was a 5x5 piece of an artboard, right? So say that I want it every half an inch, and I say steps. So like you might, depending on what measurements you have or something like that, that's what the specified distance is, because then you might need something to be very regular. And what you need is for this to do a certain kind of stepping shape. And so then distance works as well. It kind of gives you the same idea of steps, but if you don't want to calculate how many steps, then you can just go with the distance that you want between one and the other. Does that make sense? For the most part, steps is better. And I tend to use this. Well, first of all, I'm not by profession, I'm not an illustrator. I'm a designer, a graphic designer, which is different. So I don't sit there and make, big, complicated, realistic looking things. But I do use a lot of this because shapes and positioning and place like that, that's color balance, that kind of stuff is all about graphic design. And so sometimes I'll want a shape that's an in-between, and I'll play around with these things and I'll come up with, I kind of like that, which I might have not like designed this from the start. Does that make sense? So I like to see those transitions. But also, I'm going to show you guys in a minute. I'm going to go to gradients, and this is a way when you can't have the gradient do it for you, which sometimes you can't. Then when you put a ton of steps, as we saw before, you can, and even without a ton of steps, like right now I said smooth color, and this didn't, like the specified steps were 10. But when I said smooth color and I say, okay, then it's all, ultimately it gave it a ton of, it had to do the equivalent of giving a ton of shapes. But if I were to expand this, it made, and look at this is going to be crazy. I expanded this one. Which is this top one. Look at it, ended up making bazillions and bazillions of shapes. So it does the same exact thing. It's just 3 different ways of calling it, right? So I don't know how many steps this took, but it's not like it just blended colors. Each one of these is a little step of a shape in between. See how the bond goes? So if I go back to this blend options and switch back to steps, it would tell me that it was 216 steps. And once again, if you told it to the distance, it would tell you how much distance it was taking and stuff like that. But it's basically all the same. It's just different ways of seeing it. Okay. I'm going to go back to, it doesn't really matter which, but just once again, the caveat that if you give it a stroke, that stroke becomes kind of another object. So I'm going to give it a very different color stroke. Well, this goes through 3. I don't think I have like a dark, bright green. So that when you have tons and tons of steps, you give it a stroke and it seems to take over because you're only seeing the stroke, right? Even if you have a small stroke, it's a small stroke, you're still seeing a lot of it. But if you were to have less steps, then you'd see that what's happening is that you're having that green was taking over everything, and we were seeing the green when you have a ton of steps. So the stroke or not stroke, if you go, I'm choosing pink and it's not turning pink, and it's because you had a stroke that when put together into many steps, you just didn't see the fill anymore. You just saw the stroke. Does that make sense? So anyway, I choose to have no stroke for the most part, unless you're looking for a specific shape and you want to say the shapes that things are converting to. I like to do this one without a stroke. All right. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, but I have a lot more to show you and time is running short. So let's save this and call this one blend. And then, yeah, any questions? I know Odessa, you caught on, you showed up a little bit in between this, but since I had just started to demo the second one, hopefully you caught up to it, but if not, I just started this at the end of the break, so it was only a few minutes. You can go to the break and look at the beginning of it. All right. Any questions? I haven't had you guys give me a yes or a no, but this is another one of those things. Oh, one last thing. I did forget to say one last thing. And then that's it. You can still apply effects to these. So say that I wanted to go to this double click to get into isolation mode to this one. I could still go to the effects and give it, I don't know, zigzag or something like that, right? So this is one of those effects that will then, move through or not through the shape. I'm going to smooth the zigzag and say, okay, and there you go. So all that happened here is that the first shape, if I look at my shapes, is this the bottom one? Yeah. This first shape, okay, if everything else were turned off, except for this one, here we go. If I turned everything else off, except for this one, there we go, then you would see that this shape, double click, is simply, if I were to take the blend off, let me see. Can I say, let me just go to blend and release the blend. Oh, because I'm in and I'm in, how do you call it? I'm in, you can't work on anything that you can't see. That the computer, if it's off, it doesn't work. So I was trying to release a blend, but I wasn't seeing some parts of it. So if I go back to the blend and I'm not saying expand to have all the in-between pieces, I'm saying release. So this is the shape that I had just, that I had turned because I had put in a zigzag on it. Does that make sense? So that's the shape that I blended with everything, which is why I was getting that weirdness kind of stuff. But that I can still turn this off and say, nope, I don't want to have this effect on it, right? And then you can turn it off and have no effect on it, okay? Or you can just throw it into the trash, the zigzag into the trash, and now you're back to not having it, okay? Kind of like that. I don't think I've ever seen this effect. I've never tried to give a zigzag to just a basic rectangle because it seemed like such a boring shape, but this is kind of cool. I don't know. I've never. But if it's a zigzag, why is it not identical if I started with it? Now I'm curious, why is it different here? Maybe the amount of zigzag. And now I have to get all, now I have to go. That's so cool. See, I wouldn't have thought, okay, I'm discovering. I would have never thought I could get this kind of thing out of something. The zigzag to me was always the big shape, but I guess I went extreme enough that it's doing some cool stuff that I don't think I've ever noticed. So there we go. I just found something special. All right. When it comes to Illustrator playing around, oh, did I get rid of everything else? Command Z, 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 let's undo. At some point I must have done a big old delete. There we go. Huh? Okay. Let me just save it there. Let's get some screenshots of this with all their blends and blend modes. Oh, and you might want to also select one of these and put the blend options window in there so you can do that, and then do a screenshot with the blend options there so you can remember that. as I said, there's that new tool that it didn't seem to be working the way I wanted it, so I'd have to explore it because I thought all you need to do is select the two shapes you wanted and then click on this to give it the tools, but yeah, I don't know why. When I double click on it, I get the blend. Let me see, it's showing me there. Oh, it made, oh, they don't have them selected. Maybe that's the difference? Because I was selecting them. Okay, now, because there you go. You learn things from those little animations. Because in the past, you had to select the shapes to get a blend, right? So what that seemed to say is that you don't need to have them selected. It would seem, according to to that little animation, that you just have two shapes, no selected. You click on this guy and you do that. No, that was just simplified animation. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Top to bottom. It only does it in the direction of the second one to the front, but I didn't have to select the shapes. Okay, well, there we go. That's good to know. So now you know, because I just figured out that the way to do it with the new tool, this blending tool is relatively new, is, and I have never known of things to work on non-selected objects. That's why it was so confusing to me, but I guess it works on non-selected objects. So if I were to go to these that I had created before, no, because this is a blend. Yeah, look at that. What if I try to, oh, now I'm like curious. What if I try to blend this one with that one? A blend with a blend. Oh, okay. This is kind of fun. As you can see, I also discover stuff. So I can blend blends with that tool. All right. Well, I'm actually going to screenshot this because this is new to me. I'm going to screenshot it for me. There you go. Now this wasn't this I had expanded this object, okay? So this wasn't a blend. Let me clarify. These were individual bits and pieces, and I blended them into a blend, right? But if I had just tried to blend them between themselves, it seems like it would have kind of worked. Only does it with two. Huh. I don't know. I got to play, but now I'm all curious of how this blended with that and this. This took the whole group. This was a group. But if I go to a blend, does it do blend against blend? No, okay, last chance. These are two blends. Do they blend together? From here to here? Huh. All right, well, there you go. That's new to me. I'm gonna stop there. You guys play with it. Cool. Please, any questions, anything you might want to see or do? I'm going, oh, I stopped the share, but I'm going to our, I just went to our Padlet. Make sure that you guys go to Padlet and put these things on. I'm going to put one more time that you guys have it too many times now, but there's a link for the Padlet so that you guys don't forget to put your stuff in the Padlet. Okay, cool. Some nice little things going on. Oh, Odessa. You really went crazy with that last one. I'm not sharing. I should share. That's kind of fun. I like
The
to see what you
only
guys.
thing is I tried to get the last two to join, so it was one solid path and it wouldn't join the last two for some reason. Or I couldn't
Yeah.
get it to.
Yeah, that last tool I need to figure out, but look at that. Cool. And across artboards and across everything and multiple blends. So anyway, play around with it, you guys. Now, why I was going to teach you color, what did I go with this blend tool? Because many times the blend tool might be a way of creating a gradient because the gradient that I'm going to show you now is just color. Versus this is color and shape. And so sometimes you want to have like that little bit of blue in the middle, and then it goes back out to a big sun and a big, and then you can control it as long as you don't have strokes. You might be able to kind of control it that way. But I do want us to go to color. Now I'm looking at who's here. I have a question that might, because I know that some of you guys need to talk gradients, but for others of you have done gradients. I also wanted to show you, remember I told you to bring a photo today so that we could turn it into a vector in the, nope, last time I had mentioned bringing a photo. That's okay. I can put one in our Padlet, but I wanted to ask who wants at this point, because of the time left. I can keep going with color and gradients, which is important. So I need to do that anyway, but I can do it a little bit shorter and I leave a little bit of time for, I won't be able to do it in depth if I leave a little bit of time for tracing in a photo and to turning it into a vector file. So depending on those who are here who've done one or the other, give me a yes if you want to include any image trace, or no if you don't want to include image trace. I'm hopefully I can give you both, but give me a yes or a no. Yes to include image trace. Most of you said yes. Okay. And then, so then let me go rather quickly through gradients, because knowing how to make a gradient is pretty crucial. So let's make a new file. This is a blended way of doing gradients. Let me say new, file new, and create. And let's start with a good old rectangle. Boring basic shape, but that works well for this class, for this subject. All right. So we made a new file. I need to move this over there. A new shape, not a new file. Yeah, new file and a new shape. Let's go ahead and give it a teensy weensy stroke, the 0.25, and you'll see why I do want to give it a stroke or not. And then we can keep it black for now. We might change it later. But for fill, we're going to go ahead and use, there's these 3 gradients. There's a 4th one over there. Let's use the orange one. And here's the gradient. Now there's no other shapes in between. This is a pure color gradient. Now, how do I modify this color gradient? And what if I didn't want the gradient to be yellow through orange? That's just the one that showed up as one of my samples. First of all, this is all completely solid. Let me click away so that we don't change this one. Make one more shape kind of overlapping it a little bit. And let's make it one color. Let's make it, I don't know, green or something like that. I should have done that first. So let's make it green or something like that. And then let's change it in the layers and let's move it underneath. I want this one, this that I just made to be underneath. Okay. Now, the reason I want that is because I want to have something solid and very colorful underneath. Now I'm going to grab this gradient. And I want to show you that not all gradients are solid. So if I go to the one next to it, we'll discover that this gradient goes from full on color to slightly transparent to completely transparent and no color. Does that make sense, what I'm showing you? So that's a gradient that goes from, not only does it gradate the colors, because this was white, but it, well, I'm not sure. It could have been white or it could have been just a gradient from blue to no color. Or here I have one that is a gradient that's black to white, but it is still fully solid. You see solid over there. Versus this one is black to nothing. And then this last one is also transparent, but it's radial and you only see the middle. So we're going to talk a little more about that one. For now, let's hold on to the three straight ones, okay? So there's white to color. It happens to be black, but it could be any color. And there's transparent to color. And then this is many colors to color. Okay. So let's stick back on this one, on the color to color, and let's start with that one. And what if I want to edit this? If I double click on, if I go here and I double click on it, it just gives me the name, right? Which is a name someone invented. Before I could modify a color from here, but not this one. Gradients can't modify from here. So there's a couple of different places you can do this from, but notice that when I have a gradient as a color, these tools appeared over here. Edit gradients. When I had a green color, there is no edit gradients tool, but when I have a gradient, then the edit gradient pops up. So there's this edit gradient, there's these three choices, and then there's some more there. Let me really quickly run you through this one. This is the lineal gradient. This is the radial gradient. Remember with it. And this is the freeform gradient. And we're going to talk about that one later. So this one is a completely different creature than the other two. So let's just go back to the first two. Okay. Now, when I say edit gradient, since I went and did that way, the edit gradient appeared, then this line appears on my gradient. Zoom in a little bit more. So what this line is, each one of these circles is a choice of color. So let's start with that. Let's choose one of these colors. Let's choose this second yellow one and double click on it. And ooh, I get a chance to make it a new color. Let's make it be blue or pink. Let's make it be blue, so it's very different. So this was my chance to make this color be a different color spot. So then I can go to this one here and double click and make this one be blue again. Now I'm choosing blue because it's very different, but notice that you get some really nasty gray, icky colors between blue and red, right? But just see how you can modify colors. Now, what if I just want more of this blue and less of that one? More yellow and, change how much, because it seems pretty random. Well, these little or not triangles, rhomboid shapes, diamond shapes, tell me the distance between these two spot colors. And so what's happening, I've got a little bit of yellow and a ton of blue because it isn't centered. But I'm going to move this over and I'm going to give it much more yellow and much less blue, right? So this diamond changes the transition phase, and I've left just a little tiny line of that. Same here, I can give it much more blue and a little tiny bit of that color so I can make something else happen. But I can also change the distance of the spot. So maybe I want to move this orange over. So I grabbed it from the spot now. So this is the transition between blue and orange. This is the actual color where it starts. Does that make sense? Whoops. So I want to transition this more softly, or I want to move the color over, right? And move it over. So this is a gradient with many, many different tones. And I'm not making pretty tones. I'm making tones that you can really see the transitions, right? Ideally, this would not come into existence. I think these colors are pretty disgusting, personally, the combination. But the idea is to show you exactly what each one of these elements do. Well, what if I just go, you know what? I just don't want this blue anymore. Well, I can select it and just hit the delete key. so I selected the color blue spot and I deleted it. Now I'm going between yellow and orange. Maybe I can move this one over. So I'm just making a simpler gradient. What if I now want to get rid of the orange? I'll grab the orange, select it, and hit the delete key. Whoop, I hit the delete key twice, hit the delete key. Now I got rid of the orange. So now we have only, now we only have the yellow, blue, and red one. And I can still choose what to transfer. And now I'm going to actually change that color, double click again and make it a green. And now I can transition between these three colors. Does that make sense, you guys? Actually, I'm going to make it a different green because this is too similar to that background green. So let's make it be a darker green. There we go. That way it's clearly not that background green. All right. So now I have, so each time I want to do the edit gradient there to keep playing around with stuff. All right. If that all worked, give me a yes. So you saw how to use those tools. Now, one more thing before I move on to a separate set of tools. What if I grab this tip of yellow and brought it in? So you can, right? And say, I don't want this to be a gradient. This is full color. And now I want it to start transitioning into green or something like that. So these end points are also points that you can move in or out. Okay, just wanted to show you that. Now I'm going to get rid of this in between, hit the delete, and now I only have two colors. Now this isn't so dissimilar from what we started with. We started with the yellow to red, but we had like 5 spots of colors in it. Would that really have been necessary? Well, yes and no. For the most part, this should do the job, unless I wanted a little bit of yellow, much more orange, a bit less orange, more red. Does that make sense? That's why all those spot colors made sense. But otherwise, all I can do is go from red to yellow. I can just do that, right? But in the original one, we had, I think, less yellow, more orange, less green, whatever that was. So what if I want to add a color to this? Because I got rid of them, I'm left with 2. Well, when I put my mouse now over the line, it comes up with a plus sign. And when I see the plus sign, I can click. And now I've added a spot color. And it takes the color of wherever it's at, right? So now I can double click it and say, well, I want that spot color to be pink. So now I've got 3 again. Okay. I can go over here and add another one. Just make sure the tip of your arrow is touching and it takes on the color of the spot it's in, but you can double click and choose it to be a different color. And then you're left with something a bit more similar to what we started with, only now I'm changing the colors again where you have different color spots. All good? So now we got rid of colors, we changed colors, we added colors, we changed the transition between colors. I'm going to get rid of one of these to make it a little bit simpler and go back to having just 2. So I got rid of all my spots just to have 2. I guess I'm a little bit in a hurry to do that one other thing, so I'm not noticing. Normally we would have been having different samples here of different ones, but for now, it's okay. Let's go ahead and last thing is that I can go over here to where it says gradients and I can click on this little extra 3 dots, because remember the 3 dots show you more tools. And now I have an equivalent gradient, but it's over here. Like I could have grabbed this little diamond right there and moved it to the left or to the right. And see how it's happening there? It's pretty much a little mini gradient. In fact, this is the only way to do gradients that we had eons ago. This tool is new. I'm saying new, but from like 10 or 12 years ago, new, meaning this has been here forever and ever. That tool is slightly more limited because it lets me do everything I just did, but over here, I have many more options. So what are the many more options that I have? First of all, when I double click the red over in this one, I get the choice to make not only the color that we did before, red, green, blue, click away, but I can make that spot have less opacity. So I'm going to go all the way down to 50% opacity for that red. So now over here, it's solid, 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 right? And I'm going to move the transition, and it's slowly transitioning into, at the end, it's 50% red. So this might be 70% red and 80% red, and here it would be 100% red, except for it's already transitioned into yellow, right? Sorry, the tools that are here, I could go down to 0%, and then I have equivalent of what we had that blue sky before. Now I have faded to actually, even though I have a red color, you barely see it, because by the time it gets to the end, it's at 0%. So the only time you have a lot of red is over here, but it's transitioning, right? So you won't get to see too much of that red. It just gives you a little bit of tone. And then it transitions to absolute 0. I'm going to bring this back to 100%. And I'm going to make the yellow now be 20%. So it never goes to pure white, it goes down to 20%. And this is why I try to always have another color in the background when I'm showing this, so that you can truly see that it is transparent versus not transparent. I'm not doing screenshots of these things, but you probably should be, of the different stages between screenshots. And in fact, you should have your little edit gradient tools open for the screenshot, at least for one of them. There. And there. So that gives you a bit of an idea what's happening with the opacity. And yes, could I have had many color spots in here? Yeah. And remember that to put more color spots, we had gone over here to the plus sign, but guess what? I can put my mouse right here where the color spots are, and I can just do a little plus sign right there. And I've added another color spot right here, and I'm going to double click and make this one be, I don't know, green, right? 40%. Let's make that one be 100%. So I can handle it all from here. There's really nothing that I've done here yet that I couldn't have done there, right? So what's the point of this line? I will show you in a second. But first, I'm going to bring everything back to 100%, just because for the demo that I'm going to make, it's a bit easier. I'm going to make this a blue. I'm going to make my yellow a full 100%. And I'm going to go and start with this red, which I haven't changed yet to anything else. I'm going to make it be a light green or something. Okay, so now I've got, actually trying to make a gradient that's a bit more pleasant, and the gray the yellow gets kind of weird. So let me go for a green. There we go. So now we have finally a gradient that I actually like the colors more of. All right. You've seen a couple more things here is what if I want to save this as a swatch? Because if I go over here to the fill, the swatch is nowhere, right? So if I want to keep that, I can go over here to the plus sign and no go. It's only saving the color spot that I had selected. So if I have this one selected and I tried to go over to the fill and have the gradient and I say plus sign, it's only going to save that blue. Does that make sense? So the same way that we've been saving gradients before isn't working. And by the way, here's another place to find the gradient options. If you go over here and you wanted to not go back over there, here's the gradient options again. Only this time they're popped out on their own instead of here, which I kind of like, so I can show it to you a little bit better, but it's exactly the same as this. Yeah. All right, so here's how you would save a gradient. You would go over to the swatch in the gradient box right there, and then you can click on that little tiny icon right there that says add to swatches. If I now go to the swatches, there's my new gradient. Yeah. So gradients, you don't save just with a plus sign. You have to actually add it. There's another way to save gradients that I'm drawing a slight blank on right now. So it doesn't matter. This one is one that's worked forever, but I think there is a new way. Anyway, all right. A couple more things about this box. Under the the box and that we just saved the gradients from, I have the choice to reverse it. That's a quick little, if I just preferred it to be in the other direction, that's all. That's a quick little gimmicky thing. When I click on this one, I get a radial gradient. Let's ignore the last one. Let's go back to this one because now I'm going to show you the main reason, not the only, because you could have done it with this, but the main reason that this tool is cool is because when this bar is up, which means your gradient tool is set up, I can now click and drag and change the order, the position of the gradient. I could click and drag and make it be like that. I can click and drag and do that. I can click and drag and do this. Pretty cool. Click and drag and change the order of my gradient and how it's falling. And actually, I'm going to make this box a little bit bigger so you can have a bit more playtime. Usually I make more gradient boxes, but now I'm doing it all in one. So you're going to have to do some screenshots here and there. Like, let's do a screenshot now. And this is so different, right? And maybe go ahead and turn this on so that you can also see how to save a gradient. Now, I'm going to save this gradient now, right? And when I go to my swatches, I discover that it didn't make any difference. The gradient saved did not save the order of it. If I go fill it with this one or with this one, it won't change the order. So say that I wanted to make a new box now, right? And I saved and I wanted to give it this gradient. It'll force it to be the gradient that I'm in. Like the original one that was sideways kind of disappeared because both of these are giving me the same position gradient. You see that? So you just have to still come in here and change it. Oh, by hand, I need to have the gradient tool selected. There we go. Oh, because I was working on this one now. Let me just delete that one. That's why. Okay, select this one, gradient tool. I can also grab these corners if I'm not sure and move them myself. You know, you don't have to click and drag. You can just say, well, I want this one to end up over there. I'm going to move it over, stuff like that. Make it be tinier so you only have a gradient that starts there, or make it further away. And then you still always have your tools. I think I lost a color here when I was doing that because I didn't, yeah, I lost a color spot. So let me add a color spot over here. My light blue was over here, right? Yeah. Nope. I didn't want to lose that one. I wanted to add one. There we go. Now I can move it over and do a better job. All right, so now, could I have done that? Let me go back to like left to right. So it's the regular one that we started with. Could I have done that with here? yeah, so here we have some places to move this around, but I don't know about you, but it's harder for me to kind of figure out the numbers than to just click and drag. Does that make sense? Just so you know, that would have been there. All right. Let me make it back or to a regular left and right. Couple more things about gradients and then we'll be done, which is, let's switch to the radial one right there. And the radial one only goes kind of half, you know, from end to end because that's, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Because that's its point. I can still choose how quickly or how small it gradates from one to the other. I can still choose to have like the green be 0%, in which case if I were to move this over that, you could see that this is transparent. Yeah. So nothing's changed in that sense. Let me go back and make it 100%. But I can also alter the shape of that inner circle. So with this number now, I can go ahead and make that make it be an oval or a long, you know, a tall. Anyway, you can play around with that. You can now drag it over. And if this were in the yellow tones, that would be a nice little sun, wouldn't it? I'm going to go with this one here and begin to make it more like orange or sun yellow. And then the middle one, make it be a bit more orange. There you go. So now I made a little bit of a sun there. So this, I was able to change shapes a little bit with this, but it would have been easier to make a sun with this where I could put in like the bottom is blue and then what shape the sun would take or whatever, but I was able to kind of do it here too. If this was the background of my drawing and then I make over here a beach and whatever, but in the end, it's not as easy to control, you know, where the whole thing, let me just have it be over there. There. So that's a gradient. You'd be like, really? Yeah, that's a gradient too, even though it's more of an illustration. You want to grab this to move it around as a shape, you can't. You have to come into the gradient, modify the gradient. Versus if I had done this with a blend, then I would have been able to, and given this circle a feather, then I would have been able to move it. So I know, well, I'm going to do the trace. So now I'm going to give you an example. If I give this shape, now I'm not doing gradients. Now I'm giving this a sky blue. Let me give it a different blue so it really looks like it's a different drawing. Sky blue, right? Then I'm going to make a circle. I'm going to make that circle be bright yellow. And I'm going to give that circle, where was the feather? Feather, feather, feather. A feather. And if I give it a big feather, oh, the other way around. Okay, whoops, I need to do that. There. So this is a circle with a feather and it's a separate shape, right? I could blend these two. Well, that alone kind of represents that, and then I can move the sun around, but I could blend these two. And I'm doing this a little bit off the top of my head. And let's go to the blend options. And specified steps, let's give it, I don't know, 100. Hello? Expanding repeat objects. Okay. That's because of the feather. I gave it too much of a feather. Let me see if I go back. I can't. I know that I did this a few times, but I can't right now. I need to go and change the feather. It was too much. Okay. So let me double click. Yeah, my computer's going crazy. This really uses up. The only negative of blends is that they use up a lot of computer. I'm just trying to change the feather, but it's needing a ton of processing. So let's give this a much smaller feather. Ugh. That's because I have the preview on. So each time I change it, it turn the preview off. Okay, and then make this be again like 0, 0. And then let's turn the preview on. Okay. And I'm going to take, okay. I'm going to take the stroke off. No stroke. Ah, my computer's going crazy. Took the stroke off. And the other one has a stroke too. Take all my strokes off.
Diane, where did you pick up the feather?
What's that? The feather is an effect. Okay, there's something about, I probably need to get rid of this and do it without such a feathered circle to start with, because that is because of the feathering and my computer's going crazy. So I'm gonna just change that blend and do it again without a feather. But anyway, I do want to teach you something else. So right now I want to move on, but let me just show you really quickly again, a circle. I'm not going to do a feather this time, but you go over here to the FX, and I think it was under stylized feather. That's where it was, but I'm not going to do that. Maybe a glow, but I don't know if the glow is going to make it do crazy stuff again. So let me just first do these two things and blend it. Make the blend. And now I'm going to move it out a little bit. And now that is, depending on how many steps of blend I want, I'm going to have it spread further or not. But here's the problem with that. Unless I don't see the outlines, it's hard to visualize it. So I'm going to make a little gray box here. It's kind of weird, but I'm going to show you. It's just to visually hide this, because this is not going to print, right? But so for me to see it, I'd have to do that. If this is going to be the page, and I'm going to see what it's going to look like. Right? These are two shapes that are hiding it. So this is what I just accomplished with a blend. For better or for worse, I can move this one around. I can make this expand more. I can make them be pretty similar, but I do want to move on for something else. But to see the effect, I made two gray boxes to hide that, because otherwise my brain doesn't like really see what's happening. Does that make sense? Now, for the so then I can go back to this one, edit the gradient, and decide that maybe on this one I need to give it more of a transition for the sun to, then I make it bigger. And then, so there's different ways of getting effects here and there, and you're going to use the one that works best for the situation. But also this one is operating with 215 or something like that objects. So your computer is working much harder to do this blend than to do that. So if the gradient does it, it's much easier on the computer and on the processing than if you do it with a very complicated blend. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that really quickly. Let me just save because I haven't saved yet. And I'm going to call it gradients practice. Right there when my computer was freaking out and I was like, oh, I didn't save it. And then the last one I'm going to show you is the free form. So let's make a box of any kind. Of course, my box is gray because it's the last one that I just made. I'm going to fill it with a prettier color, hit your eyes color. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the gradients over here, right? Gradient tool. And I can choose a gradient. Oh, I never saved the last gradient. So if I wanted to save that one, it's still there. I should give it a save so that it saves. Okay. And then on this one, let's add a couple more color spots. I'm going to make, oof, that color is going to look horrible next to each other. Let me give it a green. So now I have a green, blue, and a yellow. Okay. So I just gave it a gradient, and I don't care if what you do instead, if you go over here, fill and start again with one of these other ones. I mean, just start with a gradient that's there. I had that gradient that we had done before. Why isn't it? Go back to get out of radial and go back to regular gradient. Okay. Let's choose the last one, freeform gradient. The freeform gradient has a couple of advantages and an immediate drawback. Let me tell you the drawback so you don't get too excited about it. You cannot save it as a swatch. This is a one-time thing. But if this were the time you're making the background, the sky, you know, with the sun, then who cares, right? I mean, that's fine. But this is not savable as a swatch. Now, what happened here, you know, so weird. Well, it's just that I had a very boring gradient and I have these points floating around now. So these are the color points that I can move around. This one was white. Let me double click and give it, I don't know, a deep blue. This one is some kind of grayish, whatever. Let me make it pink. This one here is, make it a bit yellower so we can see them differently. So I can move them around. And I can do that. So it's kind of like watercoloring. But I can add more points. So if I click in the middle without, like anywhere that's not on one of the spots, so I'm going to click right there, then I'm adding another point. So maybe I'll make this one purple, right? And then this one, I'll make it a bit bluer or less purpley. And I'll make this one a little bit lighter. No, I don't make it lighter. I don't have a green there. I'll make it green. All right. So that's how you add more. You point, you move them around. But how do you change the amount that each one's strength has? And that would be this circle that shows around them. So I can click on this and expand and contract how much the green takes over. I can click on the pink and I can contract or expand how much pink takes over or how quickly it feathers into another color. Anyway, as you can see how easily this would have been to have one color be all blue and have a yellow over here and make a sun that way, right? And I don't want to go to doing that same shape again, but you guys can imagine that if I want to get rid of this one, for example, all I need to do is hit the delete and I got rid of one. Right? So now I'm left with these guys. Okay. That's it. You can't save it. You can make it as a one-time thing, but you can't save it. If I were to select this now, copy, and bring into another document, it comes, but again, it doesn't save itself and you can't save it as a gradient. So if you really want it again, save it, then you have to. Now, I haven't had a chance to show this group the libraries. So for those of you who know the libraries, you can put this in a library and bring it to another document. But for the rest of you guys, I'm gonna show you first. I didn't mean to put the gradient thing there. I'm gonna show you first, not first, but I'm gonna show you the image trace. Okay, so for now, let's go ahead and do a screenshot of the freeform gradients. Oh, I don't have the points and the tool. There you go. Gradients. Yeah. And if I shift that to go out of the way, I just lose it because when I go back, all the colors are gone, right? So I might undo. This is unique. Once you have it, and then it's gone. Okay. So this was gradients, this is a blend, and now if we've saved, and I'm gonna start a new one, and I have just a few minutes left. Let's create a new document. And, oh, that's true. You guys don't have the image. Okay. The image that I wanted to use. Oh, this is not gonna be good. Let's try. This is not what I wanted, but it's okay. I'm gonna put in a photo in here, and it's pretty low res, but that's so are you guys seeing this? I made a post with a photo way down here. Let me pin it to the, let me color it
Trace.
green, and let's pin it to the top. So now it'll show up at the top. Okay. So if you don't have a photo of an object, a single object, something easy on your computer, then go ahead and download this one. If you click on it, oh, it didn't. Okay. No, it didn't download. It didn't upload as a file. Huh. So that's not going to work. Let me edit it. And
It downloads as a JPEG.
it does download as a JPEG?
I did. I got mine. I got it.
Oh, okay. So when you click on it, I guess because it's mine? How did you download it that it gave you a?
Yeah, I just clicked on the little buttons, the little dots, and it says download. It's probably because you did it.
Yeah, because it's mine. Okay, so go to the three little dots, you guys, and then say download attachment. See, for me, it wasn't showing up as a, because normally it would say JPEG here. It's okay, it works. Say go ahead and click on the dots and say download attachment. And once you have it, give me a yes. Once you have download, you just click on download, and that's all you need to do. And it'll go into your downloads folder. So then let's go to Illustrator and say file, place. Your downloads folder, and it'll show up there. And then say place, and it'll come up like this as something that hangs out on your mouse. And if you do a single click, it's small enough that it'll fit in one of these little 5x5 panels. And then I want you to do it again, file place, bring it a second time in, and put it on this page. So now we have it in there twice. And I didn't want you to duplicate because I'm not sure right now of that, how that would have been handled. Now I'm going to go to the second one. First of all, the reason I didn't really want this image is because if you can see, it's pretty low quality. So if you have a better quality one, you can do that. But for now, it's the one that I had handy. I thought I was gonna put one up there, but whatever. Okay. So was everyone ever to place it? We're all good? Give me a thumbs up. I'm seeing all of you guys. Okay. So now the image tray, the idea, okay, the idea is that, yeah, sometimes you want an illustration of this bird. Okay, that's the image trace. But you could have also grabbed a piece of paper and sketched out a cartoon or a drawing or a flower, and you want to bring it into Illustrator, right? So this isn't just about a photo of a thing. It can also be, and this is really what we use it for a lot in Illustrator, is people sketch things, and then maybe you're sketching ideas for the logo of your business, or you're sketching ideas for your cartoon, and then you just trace it in, and then you have it in vector mode, and then you modify it. So what I'm going to do is selecting the second one. Either I go up to image trace, or since it's a photo, one of the quick option choices is image trace right there. So I'm going to click on image trace, and it gives me some default settings. Let's go ahead and say that I want high fidelity photo. Click on high fidelity photo. I hadn't seen this note before. Yeah. So it's interesting because let me click on this little box that's right next to image trace to get the whole image trace box. It's so funny because one of the things that reason I leave two, it pretty shocks everyone, is that because normally with a high resolution photo, when you do this, people think nothing has happened because this is so good that it looks like a high image photo, but I had not done that with a low resolution photo before, and it clearly doesn't look like that. If you guys have a photo anywhere that's in your computers that's high, bring it. Otherwise, do this later as homework. Let me see if I can find a high res photo myself. So this is a relatively high resolution photo. I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to place it right here. And I'm not clicking only, I'm dragging it because it's so, if I just place it, it's so high a resolution that it would be huge. So I'm going to do the same thing to this one. I'm going to give it a high resolution trace, high fidelity photo trace. And it'll take quite a while. And there you go. It's done. I'm curious about this try now, but I want to do it later. So yeah, believe it or not, doesn't this still look like the same photo? This was a high resolution photo. It still looks like the same photo. But if I approach Command Z, 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 I'll discover that nope, it's an illustration. But that's how good that high fidelity photo trace looks like if you have a high resolution photo. But on a low resolution photo, the best it can do is give you the same thing as we had when we zoomed into this one, right? But this is a trace. This is an actual illustration right now. Let me go to this one really quickly and show you that you could choose over here from the presets. You could choose, for example, to turn it into black and into shades of gray, turns to shades of gray, or you can decide that you want it to be only a 3-color image. You can have it be a 6-color or a 16-color. So it brings, this image didn't have that many colors, so it's not showing you that big of a difference. You can also move colors around here and get more colors. Let me see if this one doesn't have that many colors either, but look at a difference if we were to say 6 colors on this one, then it would begin to look like an illustration. See that? I don't have enough time to give to make justice to this thing, but literally bring in some photos and start playing around with these choices. Open this advanced and play around, because if you want more paths, it's more accurate. If you want the corners to be softer, like it can look more graphic-y or more realistic, depending on how you move these things around. The most realistic, of course, was the first high fidelity photo, but then you can go down. And then there's some things that work and some things that don't. For this one, for example, trying to go to silhouettes, nothing, didn't really do anything. I'm gonna, you know, it just isn't a possibility for it to look good. Versus, whoops, versus, oh, come on. Stop. Versus if I'd gone over to this one, silhouette might work. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to fix that, right? But here's the thing. How do you fix that? Say that this is something that you do want to work with in Illustrator. This is just a preview. Both of these are in preview mode, right? So what you would have to do is you would have to finish this up. Like right now I can go back and forth and shades of gray, sketched art. I'm going to do sketched art, and there you go. You can do different things. And right now I'm going to leave it at silhouette, because to show you this, it's the easiest one. And then you're like, okay, I like this. Now I want to keep working on it. So then you have to expand. That's how it finishes. Expand. Remember the blending, we had to expand to get the individual pieces. Here we do again, we expand. And now, see how the image trace went dark? Let me move that out of the way. The image trace is now gray. I can't change it anymore because I have expanded. And what I've expanded it into is into paths. If I look over here, I have a group. And this group has made it into a couple of paths. So I can zoom in here, and with my selection tool, I can go in here and I can start giving it, you know, make it, change it. It's basically a drawing now. Now this isn't so